stop the siren. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Carton Show. Happy Friday, by the way.
Happy Friday.
This is usually like the longest week of the sports year because there ain't nothing going on. We're all waiting for next week. And, of course, the Super Bowl and those silly little 6 o'clock news stories. The plane has landed. Kansas City is in Las Vegas. And on and on and on. But it's good to be here. That's David Jacoby right there.
Hey.
This guy right here, Super Bowl champion, Mr. Willie Colon. Great to have you here. There's a place in America that I've been thinking about a lot this morning because it is Groundhog's Day. And, of course, Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. That's where Punxsutawney Phil, that little rat rodent comes out of his little hiding spot. They all kind of fondle him, and he runs like he was dating Jeffrey Epstein. And that's why there's always 6 extra weeks of winter. But what's interesting about it to me is that I never knew the name of the place that he lives. And the name of the place that Punxsutawney Phil lives in is called Gobbler's Knob.
Oh, yeah.
Which is also my favorite porno.
Right.
But that's another story for obviously a different show, probably Carton After Dark.
It's perfect for this show. It's perfect for this show,
Like,
actually.
come on. Gobbler's Knob?
Yeah.
Like, okay, yeah, sure. Was that in Pulp Fiction or no?
I don't know, but I've actually celebrated this holiday. It's a big day in Pittsburgh.
Gobbler's Knob. Willie Colon's like the Grand Marshal of Gobbler's Knob.
Right.
That's why he's on FS1 and on Fox. But I was thinking, Jacob, Punxsutawney's like the city, the little village.
Oh, Gobbler's Knob is his neighborhood.
They built him like a little neighborhood or village, where he sees his shadow every single year. But I was thinking, that the whole thing that's happening like right now, 6 more weeks to winter, and I was just thinking from a sports perspective, are we going to get 6 more weeks of is Travis Kelce going to propose to Taylor Swift? Like, when does that come to an end? Are we going to get 6 more weeks? Oh, I don't know, of the New York Knicks are the best team in basketball.
I like that.
Part.
I think we're going to get that.
Did you guys see the game last night?
Great game.
The thing is, there's no Julius Randle.
9 straight.
There's no OG Anunoby.
Bang.
Knicks are going to lose.
To Indiana.
They're down
Solid
15
team.
second quarter.
They rally.
Jalen Brunson gets slapped in the face. He's on the ground.
He's a little dramatic. But
And the Knicks win their 9th consecutive game, and they start February the way they ended January with a great, inspired home court dub. I saw my man Victor Cruz at the game. Couldn't be here today, but he had no problem being at the Garden last night with Fat Joe sitting courtside. But the New York Knicks, I know it's all football and it's all Super Bowl stuff, but we have not slept on the Knicks. And the day after 2 days after the Super Bowl, I promise you, it's going to be obnoxious around here.
Oh, no question. It's going to be obnoxious. It's going to be orange, blue skies. It's going to be, everything. Jerseys. We're going to be wearing the Bernard King jerseys around here. It's going to be good.
Right. That's my guy.
Saturday night, primetime, ABC, 3-letter network. It is LeBron James and the Lakers. Coming to MSG.
And I'm pretty sure you're going to that game,
and
too.
I want to start a chant when he's on the line. We don't want you.
Oh.
I like that. Or overrated.
Overrated word.
That's a tough one, too. It's easier to chant, not as easy to back up.
I can't decide whether or not I want to start a we don't want you chant or please come to the Knicks. I haven't decided yet.
I'll be honest. I'll be the one screaming, please come to the Knicks.
I'm also thinking if we're going to get 6 more weeks of, Dallas Cowboys shouldn't sign Dak Prescott to an extension. You can't trust them in January.
Listen,
Mike McCarthy shouldn't be the head coach. Go get Bill Belichick.
It's all going to be about Jerry. Like, Jerry's going to be chirping all the way to the draft, so I don't want to hear him pass the season.
And I can guarantee one thing. We are not going to have 6 more weeks of Brock Purdy is our system quarterback because Brock Purdy is going to be crowned a Super Bowl champion 1 week from this Sunday, and we will never, ever again suggest that he is a game manager or a system quarterback.
They can win the Super Bowl by 3 touchdowns, and there will still be people that will be doubting Brock Purdy. And I might be one of them.
And if you follow with me here, guys, on the cameras, there is one other thing that we will not have to spend 6 more weeks talking about, and that is the diabetic cankles that Andy Reid has here.
Those are Air Force Ones, by the way. Those are ones.
Very clean.
Yeah, and I'm concerned. I'm concerned for him. He also has very short legs, but that's another story for another day. But that is unhealthy cankles right there, which is why Andy Reid's most likely
a lot of edema.
Going to retire and do commercials for some type of cankle medicine.
Oh, we lost Andy.
Well, that's just the way it goes. Sorry, not sorry. Anyhow, we do have a great show for you today. We got tons of football. Obviously, a lot on San Fran, a lot of Kansas City. We do have some Dallas Cowboy news for you as well. Yep. And we have the final coaching vacancy filled. But what does that mean? We'll explain all that stuff to you. It's going to be a great Friday here right after this.
Yeah.
All right, let's get out at headlines for you here on this Friday. There's the main guy, Patrick Mahomes, in for his third Super Bowl title, and Travis Kelce, same deal. Kyle Shanahan, head coach of the Niners, really came out and said what we all know. There's no surprise that the combination, not just of Kelce, but more specifically of Mahomes and Andy Reid, have won multiple Super Bowls. You know, Andy Reid had that pedigree in Philly where he went to, 5 NFC championship games, only got over that hump once, and went to that Super Bowl loss to New England down in the Jacksonville Super Bowl. But, this is a pedigree. This is guys that know how to coach very competently, have an offensive mind that very few have ever had, and a guy that can, back it up. And that's the whole thing. Like, we can all talk tough. Can you back it up? Andy Reid's a great play caller, but you do need a quarterback to back it up. And that combination really could do it for another 20 years if they want to.
Yeah, and you got to credit Patrick Mahomes. I think he was labeled a gunslinger early in his career, right? But now he's a complete quarterback. Even going into the playoff game against the Baltimore Ravens, I mean, he came out aggressive. At one point, he was 10 for 10. In the second half, obviously, Baltimore's defense came up and he got a little more conservative. But I think right now, the sole fact that Andy Reid is still coaching is because of Patrick Mahomes.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Bottom line.
Because he's got nothing else to prove.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame coach.
There's an interesting subtext to this statement. It's hard to beat as anyone who's ever played the game. And this is the Super Bowl week, so storyline after storyline is going to come out. And we've already heard some of the rumblings of could he catch Tom? It's not, is he better than Tom Brady? We all know the answer to that question. But you start to think about it. You start to think about it, and he said anyone who's ever played the game. We all know Tom Brady played the game.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things we're going to hear about over the next 8 or 9 days.
Yeah, the thing, and when you start making those comparisons, they're silly conversations, because who cares at the end of the day? They're both great. They'll go down as two of the greatest, not the greatest quarterbacks of all time. I view it a little differently, though. When you see what Mahomes has done, the most dominant quarterback right now playing football, 6 consecutive AFC championship games, another Super Bowl appearance, his 4th. I view it this way. I have such a greater appreciation for what Tom Brady did. Like, Tom Brady is not as good an athlete as Patrick Mahomes is, right? Tom Brady had Gronkowski, his version of Kelce. Obviously, some great players came through there.
Yeah,
but, the similarity is they're winning with guys that are not household names until these guys made them household names. The Welkers, the Edelmans, those types of guys. And I view it this way, where I think we should have a greater appreciation for what Tom Brady and Bill Belichick combined were able to do in New England, because if we all agree that Mahomes is the only guy that can even kind of enter that rarefied air, and he's not even close to what Brady did in the playoffs from a Super Bowl standpoint, it tells you how great Tom Brady is.
Yeah, I think when you say it in those terms, I also think about the competition, right? You talk about Peyton Manning, you talk about Ben Roethlisberger, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers. He had to win against those guys and be consistent at doing it. So, valid, Belichick probably gets a lot of the nod, but it was time after time, really putting the team on his back and delivering big moments and winning.
Yeah, and by the way, Mahomes is going through the gauntlet of AFC quarterbacks. Like, if you told me that he was an NFC quarterback, I could make the argument, much easier road.
Sure. Yeah.
But when it's Joe Burrow, when it's Allen,
Barr,
and on and on and on. Now Aaron Rodgers for the next couple of years. So it just shows you these guys are doing something
there's one stark similarity between the two of them is we always got a chance because we got that guy. It's like we got 15, we got 12. Like, you never know. Oh, you're down 2 scores in the fourth quarter. We got 15.
And we forget, this is his prime. He's 28 years old. Right, we're witnessing his prime time football. This is him and his glory.
I'll also tell you this: that why Shanahan says things about Andy Reid that are positive, because Shanahan is really the Philadelphia version of Andy Reid. Can't win a Super Bowl. right?
Interesting.
Gets the championship games, has gotten to a Super Bowl, but has not won a Super Bowl.
I like
so
this.
I think there's a lot of Andy Reid from Philly in Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, but
you like that, right? I did that. That was on the spot.
Great job.
Just came up
Off
with
the
that.
top of the dome.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know if he'll appreciate that, though. That's the thing. I don't know if he likes that comparison at all.
They call me the Brady-Like. All right. No, they don't. They don't. I just use that for myself. All right, number 2. Jed York. Who's Jed York? He's not a sitcom character. He's the owner of the San Francisco 49ers. And here's a little story that he actually uttered real words about that go back 2 years. And he said that in a preseason conversation in 2022, Kyle Shanahan said to him when Jimmy Garoppolo was there, when obviously Trey Lance's rookie year, while he's there, he said to the owner of the Niners, I just want to tell you a little something. Best quarterback on this team is our third stringer, a kid named Brock Purdy. Jed York said that yesterday.
Yeah.
You buy that? Or you think he's making it up?
No, I think he did say that, but you got to also credit Shanahan because that's not an easy thing to say to your owner, especially when you invest $20 million into Jimmy
And 3
G.
first-round draft picks.
For Trey Lance.
Jed mentioned that.
And you're talking about Brock Purdy out of Iowa State who's competing with Nate Sudfeld out of Indiana, right? Like he's like, what are you talking about right now? Like we should be all steams ahead with Jimmy G, and you're talking about a kid from Iowa State. Like be real.
Right.
But he was right. Look where we're at right now. So I think this is why you have to credit coaches, man. Good coaching, know good football players.
Yep.
And it's not about numbers. It's not about height. It's not about 40 time. It's when you put on the tape, when you're watching the guy in real time, you're like, hey, that guy's clearly
I would also
better
tell you
quarterback.
this. You have to have a tremendous amount of perceived job security to tell the owner who
Takes
you and your
marbles.
general manager just convinced to give up 3 first-round draft picks to go draft Trey Lance, and you then tell him, remember the guy we took at the very end of the draft who we're not going to give any money to?
Yeah.
He's our best quarterback.
I know you spent $20 million of your money on Jimmy G. I know you basically forego the future of the draft of the whole entire franchise.
Yeah.
But hear me out.
Right?
The last guy we picked is actually our best quarterback. Like, that is wild. It's an admission of your own mistake.
You should almost fire John Lynch because of it, right? I mean,
on the flip side, Jed York could be like, hey, I don't care what you said, make it work. He could have said that, right? Like, it's too much money.
He could have been like, I want to see Trey Lance playing quarterback.
Right.
But at the end of the day, as long as they're all on the same roster, it really shouldn't matter what a guy makes. Go play the best players. But it is a cute little story out there in San Francisco. And your third headline, I give Mark Schlereth credit. He's not here to accept it today. But we were talking about, that Seattle gig and that Dan Quinn didn't get it, right? Because McDonald got it. That was a wrap. And it was Schlereth sat here yesterday and said, don't count him out for Washington yet. He's had an interview there, and he's still a finalist for that gig. Well, now it's official. The Washington Commanders are going to lose 14 games next year. Oh, I'm sorry. The Commanders hired Dan Quinn, and they're going to lose 14 games next year, which means there's a really big opening right now in the state of Texas for defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. And there's only 2 guys I can think of that should be considered. And I'm sure there's some young studs out there I've never heard of. One of them may actually get the job. Yeah. But if I'm Dallas, there's only 2 guys I bring in to take over a defense that gave up 27 points early to the Green Bay Packers.
Give it to us, Craig.
In that playoff game.
Give it to us, Craig.
Contestant number 1. Wink Martindale, no-brainer.
Yep.
All right, so that's easy peasy. Cowboy fans will love him. He'll fit in perfectly, by the way, in Dallas, in that system, with all that talent. That becomes a badass defense under Wink Martindale. And the other guy, who I think we compete against here in the mornings from time to time, Rex Ryan. I know he wants to coach again. I know he makes a lot of money. But if Rex Ryan, can you think of a guy fitted better for that situation in that town with that owner? Woo!
2 responses. Number 1, we compete with no one.
Say it again.
Number 1, we compete with no one.
Yeah.
That's for number 1. Right. Number 2 is, if you're Mike McCarthy, you're looking at this hire because in the back of the Joneses' mind, whoever gets hired as a defensive coordinator is a potential Mike McCarthy replacement.
For sure.
Oh, 100%.
Now, don't forget, when Dan Quinn came back for last year, they also gave him the title associate head coach.
Right.
And they was thinking, hey, McCarthy screws the pooch with the offense. Quinn comes right in, and he takes over the job. But you're right. if it's Rex, if it's Wick, whoever it is, that guy might be my replacement.
Well, Dan Quinn is, listen, it's a big year for Hofstra. Raheem Morris, who graduate assistant play for Hofstra.
Bring back to Hofstra.
Atlanta Falcons. Dan Quinn was one of the reasons I went to Hofstra. He recruited me to Hofstra. So this warms my heart. But overall, if you're a Commanders fan, you're a little disappointed because at the end of the day, you don't need defense. You need offense, right? And you want an offensive-minded coach. And the last guy you hired from the Cowboys was North Turner in '94, right? That didn't go so well. So if you're a Commanders fan, you're like, listen, man, we got to score points. We don't have a quarterback. And he's been in his, I guess, tenure right now. He's not going to be controlling the personnel. He's just solely being a coach. So he doesn't have control of the roster. Right. So it's troubling, but I'm happy for Dan Quinn.
I mean, didn't they bring in Bob Myers from the Golden State Warriors to oversee their recruitment of a new team president?
That's just rich guys knowing other rich guys, giving rich guys money.
That's like mind-blowing. You brought in an NBA guy to find an NFL guy. That's why Washington will never win. Anyhow, that ends it. There are, as of right now, in the moment, 0 head coaching opportunities in the NFL. They have all been filled.
Where's Belichick?
And for the first year ever,
where's Belichick?
We have a lot of minority men filling those positions. And the fact that that's not a story is a good thing. But it happened, and it's a great direction for the NFL. And yes, none of the guys that got jobs are named Bill Belichick. Oh.
He'll be on a boat with Satan.
Those are tears of joy, by the way.
Yeah.
All right, coming up, a solid left hook in a college basketball game last night, and life-saving efforts by a member of the Baltimore Ravens on a plane 30,000 feet in the air. Plus, should the Packers extend Jordan Love now? Coots. Address right after this.
Coots.
So last night there was a college basketball game with men playing. New Mexico State was playing Liberty. Obviously, why would anybody care about the game outside of the kids that matriculated those two schools? We care about it because you'll see this right here. New Mexico State players sucker punches
Don't watch the ball.
Liberty. Just right there. Watch this.
Bang!
Woo! A dirty right hook right to the face. One more time here, guys. Off the miss. And get out of my way. Get out of my way. He was ejected from the game, and the kid on the ground is going to be just fine. He kind of overreacted a little bit. But he did get sucker punched right in the face, Willie, which is your move. That's an offensive lineman move, right?
I wouldn't sucker punch you. I'll just punch you. There's a difference.
Craig, who overreacted, the puncher or the punchee? When you said he overreacted a little bit, who are you talking about?
Well, I mean, you watch it against slow motion. Like, he does get hit, but it's not.
That's crap. So the guy who got punched overreacted, but the guy who punched the other man in the face did not.
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. That's a different way of me looking at it. The guy who does the punching overreacted to being boxed out.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
I have to own that. The guy that went down like he got shot by Lee Harvey. It was not a full on the button.
Dropped him. Yeah. But you also said Liberty University is like a big Christian school, so they don't swear, they don't curse.
Oh, is that right?
You ever been like, I bet
you he swore.
Yeah.
Well, I played Liberty in college, and when you talk trash to them, they're hostile, but in a very politically nice way. So if you get 30 scored on you, and the guy's like, "Hey, you can't guard me," and that's his worst trash talk, it'll make you punch him in the face.
Gotcha. It's like if you're cursing me out and I go to Liberty, I'm like, Jesus loves you.
Yeah. And like,
that would make you mad.
Yeah, make you mad.
Anyhow, the kid is fine, and the bad kid was ejected from the game.
The bad kid. Yeah. Off to detention, you guys.
The bad kid. I'm with Willie. If you want to fight, let's go straight up.
Go.
And at least I got a shot. I'm going to lose, but you're not going to hit me from behind, sucker punch me, because that's just something they do at New Mexico State apparently, but they don't do it at Liberty. Praise Jesus. I'm just saying. You're a heathen.
Right.
And you're going straight to hell. Here's First Football with Jacoby.
First Football, we start with Ravens star tight end Mark Andrews is not playing football, so he's on a flight, probably going somewhere nice. He's with his girlfriend. And there's another passenger on the plane in medical distress. There's a doctor and a nurse on the plane working on the passenger. Mark Andrews, who's a diabetic, walks over and says, "Have you checked her blood sugar?"
Yeah.
Check her blood sugar. Find out that's the problem. He diagnoses the problem. They give her some orange juice. She feels better. Mark Andrews saves the day.
So Mark Andrews saved the woman's life
with orange
juice, which means in a very strange way, If the Baltimore Ravens had beaten the Kansas City Chiefs, she's
might be
dead.
Yeah.
So the Lord works in mysterious ways.
Won't he do it?
Yes.
Praise Jesus.
Well,
I'm sure
Right?
Ravens fans are like,
I'm just saying, like, if he's not on that plane,
wrong. Like,
he's not on that plane, she's dead.
there's a part of me. It's also there's a doctor and a nurse there. It takes a tight end from the Ravens to like diagnose the problem. Like,
because
what are the doctor and the nurse doing?
Most doctors don't want that on their hands if things go left. They're like, I want to
Yeah, doctor had a couple glasses of wine. He's like, I don't want to work right now.
I can tell you a story. I was on a plane once I was a kid flying somewhere, and the pilot comes over the loudspeaker and goes, "Is there a doctor on board? We have a medical situation in row 8." And the doctor raised his hand, and they escorted him up to this patient they thought had a heart attack and died. So the doctor, no joke, watched with my own eyes, hand to God, and the guy goes over and goes, slap! Right? And the dude wakes up and he goes, "What's going on? What's going on?" And they're like, "Oh, we thought you had a heart attack."
We thought you were dead. Yeah. It turns out you're not dead.
Yeah, it turned out his wife was like,
smacked him in the face.
"Billy's not moving," and called, rang the bell.
Yeah.
And they didn't slap him. No joke, a doctor walked over to him and said, "Slap!"
See?
Dude woke up and was pissed.
It's called doctor's orders.
In any event, the greatest thing about the Mark Andrews story is the secondary part of the story.
What's that?
Now that Mark Andrews is becoming more of a household name to non-football fans for saving a woman's life 30,000 feet in the air, we also learned that Mark Andrews has a girlfriend.
Oh.
That girlfriend
Oh, good for you, Mark.
Oh,
is,
Mark.
Good for you.
is a
good for
college
you.
senior at the College of Charleston.
Yeah.
And they've been together for, I guess, quite some time now.
Hope not too long.
And, of course, when your boyfriend saves someone's life at 30,000 feet, non-football fans want to learn more about him. And that's what we learned.
Right.
So my only question to you, leave that up there, please, for a moment.
Yeah, I mean.
Who's luckier? The woman whose life was saved or Mark Andrews?
Mark Andrews.
I'm going to be honest, Mark Andrews.
Yeah.
That's
I think so,
clearly.
too. And like, if orange juice saved her life, then Mark Andrews is the big winner right
That's
here.
the part.
Big
It's the
squeeze.
orange juice part make it sound less heroic.
Yes,
you know what I
it
mean?
does.
It's just like,
Yeah.
you saved her with
Like you,
orange
like you
juice.
couldn't give her a
Yeah, you didn't give her a
jujube.
kidney. You saved her with orange juice.
Well, the fact that she's alive, right? He could have handed her a Jack and Coke and it would have been left.
I tell you, I'm still like, if you don't believe in a higher power or things happening for a reason, that's on you. This is not a religious show, obviously.
Liberty. We've talking about religion so far today, to be
Quite
honest.
obviously. But it's like, I can't get the thought out of my mind that if the Baltimore Ravens had advanced to the Super Bowl, Mark Andrews is not on that flight, and that woman is dead.
I like to think
Just think about
I like to think that eventually the doctor figures it out. In that
You would
scenario,
like to
I
think
like
so.
to think that eventually the doctor
But
figures
the
out
doctor
maybe it's orange,
didn't.
maybe
Like,
some
they're
orange.
like, anyone else have any ideas?
Yeah, he has his eye mask on. He's like,
They opened it up to Q&A. They looked at it like, so.
Does anyone know what we should do here?
Yeah,
She's not.
anybody ideas?
Yeah.
No.
So, like, she'd be dead.
Oh, good for Mark Andrews.
well, good for Mark, man.
Moving on.
Breaking news real quick. I'm being told that Punxsutawney Phil at Gobbler's Knob did not see his shadow.
Oh, man.
So spring comes early.
That's
Oh,
good.
hey!
That's warming up. That's
Thank
warming
you,
up.
Philip.
Knob. Gobbler's Knob. Gobbler's Knob.
Okay,
Yeah,
if you just into the show, you're like, what
I
is
will
happening?
be making shirts for the entire staff. Gobbler's Knob shirts.
Yeah.
great.
Big old groundhog right there. Love it.
Moving on. Moving really far
Hey,
on.
have you ever had your knob gobbler?
Moving way on. We are moving on to new content on
Run,
the program.
Jacoby, run!
It involves the Packers GM, Brian Gutekunst.
Where's the balloon penis?
And he was asked about a contract extension for Jordan Love. And here's what the Coons had to say.
We'll go down that road. I think certainly, I think that'll be important for our football team to have some stability there. Jordan and his representation, I think they're really good people. So we'll start working towards that, sometime this next couple months.
So, Craig, I know that you and the Coons are very close.
Yep.
Let's say the Coons calls your phone right now. You
Yep.
pick up, he says, hey, it's the Coons.
Yep.
Hey, Coons. Coons says, Jordan Love played well this season, but I have to make a decision whether or not I give him a big, long contract. What do you think I should do, Craig?
Yeah, I think, they're in an interesting position because he proved that he can play football.
Yeah.
And obviously he had a great playoff game against the Dallas Cowboys, and outside of that
Not a
last
bad
pass,
one against
obviously,
the
against
Niners,
San Fran, he was the better quarterback for 3.5 quarters of that game. They have no choice. The question now becomes, on the Jordan Love side, because you can't make the $250 million demand like you've had 1 year of football. And to your credit, it was the most important year of your life because of the contractual aspects of the NFL. Now, if he had 3 years and now you're going into the contract year or the decision of 50-year options and all that kind of stuff, then it's a no-brainer. He's getting the big bag. So it's going to be interesting. He's going to answer your first question. You have to sign him. You have to make a long-term 5-year commitment to him because, like we always say, there are no other quarterbacks out there, especially a guy in his 20s who's now entering his prime years as an NFL quarterback. I just don't know that I can commit, $200 million to him just yet. So to me, the middle ground is maybe you don't get 5. Maybe I'll give you a little more per year, but it's going to be a 3-year deal. So I think that's going to be kind of like the devil's in the details. But there's no disputing the fact that Green Bay has no choice. They have to sign him to a multi-year deal because play out the option. What if you don't? Who do you got?
Nobody.
Yeah. Right, and where are you going?
Nowhere.
You're a playoff team. You didn't win your division. You got to deal with Detroit, at least for the next year or two, as they figure out what to do with Jared Goff. They're going to extend him, obviously. I think you give him a 3 to 5 year deal and call it a day.
Yeah, at the end of the day, this guy brought you to the divisional round, right?
Yep.
And on top of that, he was, starting from like week 9 and on, I think we got the graphics to show it, he was money good. Like, he was damn good. 3 interceptions, 23 touchdowns, and 7-3. What's interesting about him going forward, man, like if you're Gutekunst, or Kutus, as we like to say here, you know how much of a lack of a headache he is that you don't have to listen to Aaron Rodgers the offseason. Yeah. Like this time, you understand, this time of the year for the Green Bay Packers, this was hell for them.
Every year, like
every year. This kid, like Gutekunst, like, man, I'll give you extra if you just don't ever be what Aaron Rodgers. You know what I mean? Like,
it's like, what's Jordan Love's best asset? Not being Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, like think about this kid. Gutekunst every offseason was like, well, now we got to go into, like, control. Like, is our quarterback going to a dunk tank to try to figure out what's next?
There was a big story in Green Bay yesterday that apparently his phone does receive text messages wherever he is, so they can communicate with him in the offseason as well. But your guys' point's dead on. As great a quarterback as Aaron Rodgers is and was, and no one disputes that, just ask Aaron, he'll tell you how good he is. The reality is that every single year, this time of year especially, he was a pain in the ass, and he held the franchise hostage. This is a much different feeling this offseason versus last couple.
Don't forget, on draft day, he demanded a trade. Like the morning of draft day. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Moving on, we have one more story for you. Third and football.
Is it Mark Andrews?
Niners edge rusher Nick Bosa had an interesting back and forth with reporters. Willie, I want to get your thoughts on this.
I hate it. Bottom line.
Film Taylor's, I think, leads the NFL with a ton of penalties. Anything stand out when you watch them?
They hold a lot.
They hold a lot. As a former offensive lineman,
he's right.
Heading into a Super Bowl week, imagine an edge rusher on the other team said that you and your teammates hold a lot.
Yeah, now the spotlight's on me. That's the bottom line. And if you're Juan Taylor, he already has 16 holding penalties.
I think he's got the most of any offensive
false starts, too. Don't forget the false starts.
Like, believe it or not, Craig, I was on that list, right? And then when you got to start
personal fouls.
I got a lot. I was littered with a lot of things I shouldn't have done. Anyway, overall, Nick Bosa, man, when you look at him, like, it really goes back to the last time he played the Chiefs, when it was 3rd and 15. Eric Fisher, he complained at the end of the I was held on that play. Well, that was Patrick Mahomes had like a big deep ball to Tyreek Hill that sparked the comeback, right? So this is a little bit of trauma. This is like, hey, whatever happened in the last Super Bowl can't happen. So I'm going to fish any way I can to make sure that the refs look at me and pay attention that these guys are holding, and he already has a track record for holding.
And by the way, there's a lot to be said about that level of gamesmanship because the refs are people, they're humans, and I guarantee you that San Francisco is going to go to them before the game, which is their job to do, by the way, and they're going to say, do me a favor, watch the handsiness of the offensive line. They hold a lot. The penalties belie that.
Yeah.
You've got the second most penalized offensive line in all of football, and the one guy you guys were talking about, Taylor, is the most penalized offensive lineman in the sport. So Bosa's not saying something that ain't accurate.
He's the most what?
Penalized?
Penalized.
How do you say that? Penalized?
Penalized.
Penalized?
I just wanted to get that.
I think it's Gobbler's knob.
I will say this. So,
that's going to be all
one
show.
thing about this, William, I'm sure you can back me up on this, is a lot of times it's when you have a quarterback as moving as Mahomes, gets out of the pocket, moves things. A lot of times you can see O-linemen expect the quarterback to be here running that way and then holding.
But people don't understand, like, when you got a guy like Bosa and you're on the edge and you're locking him up, if I'm locking up and he makes a quick reaction, he takes my hands, like it's going to look like holding every time.
Sure.
So it's not like I got to reset my hands and try. Like, this guy's a dog. Like, it's hard to control pit bulls like that coming off the edge.
Yeah, he did not comment on the waxing crescent moon. However, he did say, though, that Kansas City likes to hold it. I'm being told
we have an update on that.
I am being told in my ear right now from our researcher, Troy, that when Willie Colon played, he too led the league in penalties amongst all offensive linemen.
That's my guy. That's my guy.
I was at least top 5.
Congratulations, Willie.
I just want to crown you.
Yep.
The greatest.
Top 5.
There you go.
There you go.
He makes it look so much cooler than I do. Right? Damn it, I hate that. We got much more coming your way. San Francisco, of course, getting ready for a little revenga. A little revenge game for them, Super Bowl revenge. But can they live up to the promise of exercising the demons? This house is clear.
As we celebrate Black History Month, I'd like to highlight Ernie Barnes, artist, offensive lineman, and Renaissance man. In 1959, Barnes graduated with an art degree and was drafted by the Baltimore Colts. From there, Barnes paints, draws, and plays offensive lineman for the Titans, Chargers, and Broncos, where his nickname is Big Rembrandt. Once retired, he was hired by the Jets just to paint, and by the end of the year, he launches his first exhibit in New York. His art career is prolific in production, underappreciated by the art elite, but widely seen as his work graces album covers, the credits of Good Times, prints, and Olympic posters. His most famous painting sold for $15 million, and you can see Barnes' work in galleries and museums across the country, including the Football Hall of Fame. Ernie Barnes, artist, athlete, and American icon.
And throughout the entire month of February, everybody here at FS1 will be sharing stories of different men and women that have made a difference in their communities and globally as well. So great job there by Kevin. Welcome back to the Carton Show. Obviously, you don't have to go back but a couple years for the 31-20 Super Bowl win, Kansas City over San Francisco. And if you remember that game, that was the game where San Francisco got out to the big lead and then 21 unanswered points in the fourth quarter, including the touchdown to Watkins. Kelsey, of course, had a touchdown as well. But Fred Warner talked about how losing that Super Bowl to the Chiefs scarred him for life. Here's Mr. Warner. Go right ahead, guys.
You got to play full 60 minutes, to say, we're up by 10 points late in the game, and I'm thinking, hey, like we're about to win us a Super Bowl, and that thing switched pretty quick, and that scarred me for life. Like, because now to this day, it doesn't matter if it's a preseason, regular season, playoff game. I never start getting excited until that clock hits 0.
Yeah, and obviously, I imagine it gives Richard Sherman, our colleague, some nightmares as well. He got beat by Watkins for the touchdown.
That did happen.
Sorry, Rich. Love you, buddy, but
come back anytime. We love you here.
No, but that was, they were being outplayed. Mahomes threw a couple interceptions in that game, and then all of a sudden, San Fran's offense, when they needed that one drive, to make a difference to, kind of put the game away, got held to a 3-and-out, and the rest is kind of Mahomes history. And Andy Reid gets, his first Super Bowl, all that kind of stuff. But here we are years later, albeit not 10 years later, and while there's still some core guys that are left on both teams, obviously, speak to me about what Fred Warner's talking about.
Well, he's talking about realizing at that moment he may never come back to the Super Bowl, and realize like he pretty much fumbled the bag as a defense.
Does it play into the game next week or no?
100%. Like, you go into that game, like, you got to understand, there's clips of Nick Bosa crying on the bench at the end of that game. Right? There's clips of that defense sobbing. And for every ball player that has a chance to go into the Super Bowl, even Dan Campbell, even after losing this game, he said,
I was gonna say,
he goes, listen, man, there's a chance, this may be it.
Yeah.
Right? So when you realize that, that's scoring.
Yeah, I think there's a different angle for this game, and that is the Kyle Shanahan angle. Because Shanahan's there in Atlanta. When Atlanta blows the 28-3, he'll lead against the Patriots, and he's calling the plays. He's a part of that, right? He goes to San Francisco. He blows a 10-point lead in the second half in that game. Yep. So while guys like Fred Warner remember what they did wrong, guys like whoever's left on the team remembers being beaten on a play or not making a tackle or whatever the case is, this is also Shanahan in the second half of a Super Bowl not getting the job done.
There's a lot at stake in this game because like only people that really pay attention to football, like us here and those watching, know that that's his history in the Super Bowl.
Correct.
And if you do that once, twice, three becomes a pattern. And then you kind of get labeled with that. And one thing about that game that they played, which sort of led the butterfly wings that led to the motion where we are now, is that overthrow from Garoppolo to Sanders.
Yeah.
You know, or Samuels, sorry.
Samuels.
Yeah.
Yep.
When he overthrew him, there was a part that everybody said, man, if the quarterback play was a little bit better, they're champions. And I think that led to them drafting Trey Lance and led to them having Brock Purdy.
I think a lot of the trauma that Fred is speaking to is really coming in fruition for the last two games, right? You know, this defense hasn't lived up to what we thought they were going to, what they were in the regular season. So now, if that's the case, you're watching Brock Purdy pretty much have to put the team on his back late in games to kind of win. It wasn't the defense that had a back-breaking play. Valley Greenlaw had the interception, had 2 interceptions on and on. But overall, this defense should be playing a lot better. That front four should be playing a lot better. And now you're going against the offense who know who they are. And Patrick Mahomes knows how to respond at this moment. So he can't
Look,
go back
there's enough
to
of
what
the
it
big guys still around. Tyreek's not there, obviously. But I think the difference in this one is that I think it's fair to say Kansas City comes into this Super Bowl with a better defense than they did 4 years ago.
Better run game.
And I think San Francisco comes into this game with a better offense than they did 4 years ago. These are obviously the names that have been added or kind of deleted in the 4 years. The key addition, obviously, is Isaiah Pacheco, 6th-round draft pick out of Rutgers, who's now a trusted and valued and leading member of an offense that features Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. And the flip side is, and this is where Brock Purdy has an opportunity, not just to put himself in the Joe Burrow conversation, and the Josh Allen conversation, and legitimately the top quarterbacks in the league, he can also prove for once and for all that Jimmy Garoppolo was the real game manager and system quarterback, and they got there because of everybody else, right? Because that was the knock. Garoppolo does nothing but win, but can you count on him to make a big play? Well, Brock Purdy has a chance to divorce himself of the Jimmy Garoppolo conversation and put himself in the rarefied air of Joe Burrow.
But don't you think he proved that last game, the way he played in the second half of that
I think
game?
he did, but I'm a lone wolf on a mountain. Ow! And now people are finally coming around to seeing it the way I see it, but there are still not haters, but I think there are doubters. I think there are people, you guys might be among them, where you're starting to recognize the kid's very good, obviously. He's got some stones. He's in big plays in big spots after not playing well. But I do think the Super Bowl win, based on him playing well in it, obviously, or maybe even out-dueling Mahomes, is that last little piece that you guys need to say, you know what? I'm amending where I put Brock Purdy on my list.
I said he has to win the Super Bowl. You're saying he's already there, he's arrived.
Well, look, Jalen Hurts had a great Super Bowl last year, scored 30-whatever points, and lost. But everyone said that dude had one of the greatest Super Bowls any quarterback's ever had, albeit in a losing effort. If Brock Purdy puts up a 35 spot, probably won't, but if he does, and he's got crazy good numbers, even in a loss, you guys would have to at least acknowledge, all right, the kid's pretty damn good.
If you head-to-head beat Mahomes in a Super Bowl, I'm a doubter. I'm in that camp. I'm a Brock Purdy doubter. Even people in my camp have to look at themselves in the mirror and say, he just beat Mahomes in the Super Bowl. He's got, what else do you want from the guy?
I mean, I'm going to put some respect on his name now. I like him now, but you understand.
I thought you were with me, Willie.
I am with you.
He don't love him, though. He likes him. He's not full-on, tongue kissing.
But like we just mentioned, we talked about Patrick Mahomes in the last Super Bowl against the Niners, right? It was the fourth quarter where he dropped 21 points, right? That's when the legend of Mahomes became alive. So for me, that's what I need out of Brock. Like, I know what he's capable of, but there's going to be a point in this game where he's got to become legendary. Can he do it?
Do you guys think the worst possible thing for San Francisco would be to have a double-digit lead in the second half, knowing that Shanahan is in some way going to mess it up?
Oh, no. I mean, if you do that 3 times, then
you got to go.
It gets
you got to toss your clipboard and be like,
it gets to a point where you're even psychologically
like if you blow a double-digit point second-half lead, as great as you've been, you got to go.
But you're doing it against a quarterback that can come back.
I know.
Like,
and you probably want to give credit versus you blame it.
Yeah, of course.
But there'd be a point where, dude, you got to go to Shady Acres. We'll come visit, but it's a wrap.
There's also this, Craig. Like, there's a little bit part of me that imagine if it goes really bad for Brock Purdy. There is another Jimmy Garoppolo sort of a feeling where it's like, We just need a different quarterback to get over the.
So are you saying if he throws 3 picks in the first half, Sam Darnold comes in the second half?
No, I'm not saying that. No,
Oh,
what I'm saying, what I am saying is, for someone who was in the MVP conversation as late as he was, I'm talking like week 13, 14, it does still feel like there's a little bit of doubt, people like me, that if he plays really poorly in the biggest game, there could be some people that his job could be
it's also to believe, like, listen, if he has a horrible first half, this Chiefs defense not letting him back in the game. Like, this is number 2 defense in the league. It's not going to, like, Detroit was Detroit, right? They had an okay defense. Green Bay had an okay defense. Like, at the end of the day, man, like, it's the Chiefs defense that's carried this team.
But remember, you can run against the Chiefs. Baltimore just chose not to. I'll say this about San Francisco. Shanahan's not stupid. You can run the ball against Kansas City, and they'd be silly not to try to run the ball. By the way, congratulations to my guy, Brock Purdy. He got his first endorsement deal of his young career for a car company, and now he's got wheels. So he didn't have that. He also has a roommate still. Maybe Airbnb will give him a deal next so he get his own spot out there in San Francisco. Coming up. Before we get coming up, I do have to acknowledge a little something we like to do on the show called NBA basketball. Time for one NBA thing.
Give him the legs.
Jacoby, who's the best team in basketball right now?
The New York Knickerbockers, and it's not even close. It's not even close. Last night they did not have their best player, one of their best players.
Julius Randle, Obanabi.
Obanabi's out too. Mitchell Robinson's been out too. And then we have the full-strength Pacers come into the building. They get up by 15 in the first half, and I forgot what happened next.
They got gobblers knobbed is what happened next.
They got knobbed in the whole second half.
And the key shot of that game, up to Jalen Brunson, one-on-one isolation step back. 15-foot J, go up 4, 9th win in a row. They are 15-2 in 2024, and there is no disputing the fact that the Knicks are for real, and they're this close to the 2 seed behind the Boston Celtics, who we acknowledge probably the best team in basketball, and I have no quarrel with that, but they're right there. They're the 2 seed, a game away.
Credit Brunson, man. He's a humble all-star. He got emotion at the end of the game.
Yes, he did.
That was good to see.
Yeah, also good to see my main man, Victor Cruz, who couldn't make it in here today at the game. Again, last night, sitting courtside where he belongs. All right, coming up, we got all your headlines for you. Is there any chance, not silly, the answer to that is no. But we'll get into it and find out why nobody had any interest in Bill Belichick. But I did not approve that question. I did not.
Well, welcome back to the Carton Show. Friday. We got your Friday morning headlines, and we start with that man, Patrick Mahomes. His head coach, Andy Reid. Kyle Shanahan, head coach of the Niners, spoke about the success that those two have had together and facing them in the Super Bowl. Here he is.
It's not a coincidence why they have. I mean, I think the quarterback is as hard to beat as anyone who's ever played the game. The things he can do from a talent standpoint. And then you pair that up with his scheme with Andy, how Andy runs a team. With Mahomes' experience now, I mean, that's why no matter what type of game it is, whether it's low scoring, high scoring, whether they're struggling or not, I mean, they always have a chance.
So, Craig, you're a big Brock Purdy supporter.
I am.
I can already tell that you're leaning Niners a little bit, but here's a question for you. Who's got the better coach and quarterback combo between these two teams?
Look, I can't argue against what Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes have done. They do. And if I argued against it, I'd probably lose my license to broadcast. But that being said, Shanahan's no slouch. Like, Shanahan's not some unproven rookie coach who you don't know anything about and the moment's too big, blah, blah, blah. Like, Shanahan, for most people's money, worst case, is a top 3 or 4 coach in the NFL. Fair. So we're not talking about, a disparity between the coaches of here and here. It's more like this. Andy Reid gets the nod. Andy Reid has been to what? It's like, 15 championship games. Obviously, he's won multiple Super Bowls now, and he's achieved what Shanahan's aspiring to achieve. From the quarterback standpoint, look, you're talking about the best quarterback, arguably, to ever play the game against a guy that is one of the great stories in the history of the NFL, coming from nowhere, becoming, the Star World quarterback, for the best team in the NFC. So to answer your question, the edge certainly goes to Kansas City, because here's the one thing. We have felt, I think speaking for all of us, going into this playoff run, that Kansas City was not the same offensively as they have been in their other Super Bowl runs.
Yeah.
And there's some off about them.
Yeah.
There's not a single wide receiver that you trusted. And then Rashee Rice kind of became that guy. Kelsey's Kelsey, all good. And the question mark really was, is Andy Reid finally going to trust the running back and use the running back, which he never did in Philadelphia and he didn't have on his roster for the first Super Bowl runs in Kansas City? So what we learned about Andy Reid is the answer is yes. He has adapted his play calling to take advantage of a guy he now trusts and a running back who gets more carries than any running back has ever gotten on any Andy Reid coach team. And that's what makes them special. The other part of it, which I'm concerned about from a San Francisco standpoint, we always talk about how teams script their first 15 plays. Yeah. Now, you could talk more about that from an offensive game plan standpoint. But what's amazing is the level of success Kansas City's offense has against any and all defenses on that first drive. They scored touchdowns on their opening drive with a greater rate of success than any other team in football, with Andy Reid being the head coach and Mahomes being the quarterback, meaning they are playing from in front a lot, especially in big games, which is why I asked you guys the question yesterday. If I'm San Francisco and I win the toss, am I putting my defense out there and giving Kansas City first crack at it, knowing that they scored touchdowns on their opening drive? We can debate that more next week. That becomes challenging for a team. Kansas City is capable of, you saw it last week, a 7-minute drive to open up the game, and now it changes your entire philosophy, or at least it did for Baltimore, in what you're going to do.
Yeah, and if you go back to that Baltimore game, it wasn't big strikes down the field, right? It was dink and dunks to obviously Kelsey, and they got Pacheco going, and when they came out in their 13 personnel and had 3 tight ends on the field, and they let Pacheco get in between the tackles and go downhill, that was them setting the tone. And what I love about Andy Reid coming out the gate is he's fishing for tendencies, right? That's what he's looking for. He's looking for tendencies. What are you going to pack the box? Are you going to play man? He's getting all that out the way now. So from then on, then he's controlling.
I will say this, though. These two teams are very unique in one thing, and it frustrates me as a fan of a team that sucks, right? And for a lot of people out there that root for a team where the offensive aspect of your team ain't very good, it's so frustrating to me. And I say this for both teams. When you watch the Super Bowl, watch how many times Brock Purdy throws the ball, Patrick Mahomes throws the ball, and the receivers are wide open.
Oh, yeah.
Wide open. And it happens on both sides. Like you saw when San Francisco made their comeback, right? He's throwing the ball to wide open guys. Patrick Mahomes, dudes are wide open.
Travis Kelce's just standing by himself in the end zone. You're like, that's number 87. You don't have a plan for him?
And to me, I don't get to watch that every Sunday. When I watch my team play the New York Jets, and it's frustrating because these two franchises, to their credit, and where I think they're very similar, they play football the way James Naismith wanted it to be played when he invented it in Canada all those years ago, right? Don't be stupid and text me, okay? And the reality is that most teams don't.
Yeah, but I think also, I think this time of year, especially going into the Super Bowl, I think that's what's crazy about the Niners. I think the Niners have regressed, and obviously Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City, they've kind of simplified a lot of things. The offense goes through Pacheco. It's really Kelsey kind of putting the chip on the
think about that. An Andy Reid offense goes through a running back.
Yeah.
That's never been the case, and he's had good running backs.
But that's also how you protect Patrick Mahomes for throwing the ball so much, right? And maybe having those costly interceptions. If you have a run game and an offensive line that can lean on you, you can get busy. You can do some things.
Yep, no doubt. Go ahead.
And one of the things, they drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire to be Isaiah Pacheco.
That's right.
They spent a high draft pick on him. He was a big name coming out of college. And you're like, oh, now they got the running back. Turns out the guy from Rutgers is the running back.
I do like what you and Greg Jennings said last week, though. And the more I watch it, I have you guys' voices in my brain, which is not a good, healthy place for me to be, which is it does look like when Pacheco runs that he's angry at the grass.
Yes.
No question.
Yeah.
Like that's real.
It's like, remember Marion Barber?
Yes.
Marion Barber ran like that. Marion Barber, he just like he was stomping out fires. That's how he ran.
And he's also faster than he gets credit for. I've seen that dude in some games put on the Jets. I'm like, golly, that dude's
But you
fast.
also got to understand, when he runs the ball, he falls forward a lot.
Yep.
That's what's big. Like, he runs behind his pad. You look at he's an aggressive runner. But one, he runs behind his pads, he falls forward, and he can go yard. Like, if you get him in open space, he's hard to catch. So the kid is a total pass.
It makes it more relatable for you heavy-breasted men like me and Willie, who've never fallen backwards in our lives. To see a guy who falls forward as a positive kind of makes us feel pretty good.
We got a shot. Like, we're athletes. We're the true athletes.
I've never heard the term heavy-breasted.
Yeah, we're heavy-breasted guys. We only go forward because momentum.
So we got
Gravity's
nothing back here.
Gravity's a bitch. I mean, it's a true story. Did I mention Gobbler's Knob yet today?
Yes, many times. Moving
Come visit.
to our second headline, and it involves some more Super Bowl content, and it involves the owner of the Niners, Jed York. He shared a little tale of 2 years ago when Brock Purdy was in his first training camp. His head coach, Kyle Shanahan, came up to him and said this.
I think our third-string quarterback's our best quarterback. I'm like, okay. I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, obviously, like, we've invested in Trey. Like, Trey's doing a good job. Like, we're going to do everything that we can. We're not going to change that. And we're not going to change the chart, the depth chart. But, like, I think Brock will end up being our quarterback at some point.
This is a great story. Brock became the quarterback. He went on a huge win streak.
Yep.
Great quarterback. Established himself as the starting quarterback of the Niners without question. However, Craig.
Yeah.
If Purdy plays poorly in the Super Bowl, like Garoppolo before him, do you think that his starting job could be in jeopardy?
I don't think so, because he's gotten them to this point, right? He is the starting quarterback, period, stop. Obviously, Sam Darnold, who has much more experience than he does, is the qualified and competent backup there. But, I mean, he could throw 5 interceptions in this game. He will start next year off as the starting quarterback, and rightfully so. He's earned that right. Now, you could say going into next year, if the Super Bowl goes really south real fast, at least you have some question marks about long-term future, contractually, financially, and what they want to do. But 2 things. One, when I see that interview with Jed York, I'm like, how did a 12-year-old come up with the money to buy the San Francisco 49ers? Like, is he the kid that reviews games on YouTube and made all that money? That's the first thing I think.
Yeah.
And then the second thing, and this is what I love, this is why pro sports is not for the faint of heart. Jimmy Garoppolo did nothing but win in San Francisco. And we know he's not a top 10 quarterback, but the man won a lot of games and did go to a Super Bowl. Obviously, they lost it, right? Trey Lance got hurt. Did nothing wrong. Now, it turns out there are whispers about him not being able to read a defense, not blah, blah, blah. But the man got hurt, which is why he came off the field, right? And they talk about those 2 guys like, like they're Zach Wilson. Like they're the most incompetent losers that set our franchise back 50 years. Like, you gave up 3 first-round draft picks to get Trey Lance. You gave Jimmy Garoppolo over $100 million in his tenure in San Francisco, and he went to a Super Bowl. And because you got lucky and you found this phenom in Brock Purdy, the diamond in the rough, the amount of you're in my rearview mirror, so I'm going to dump on you is awesome.
It is.
Because Jimmy Garoppolo, just take for example, right? And Trey Lance, life's been easy for those guys. Obviously world-class athletic ability.
Yep.
From the time those guys were in grade school, they were treated differently. You know how it goes.
Yep.
Like, you weren't, because you were a bigger guy, you're strong.
Right.
Like, you just shrub like, that dude, greatest athlete I've ever seen, right? You got to work for it. Some dudes just are born.
Correct.
And life is good to them. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo is one of the best looking dudes I've ever seen. Dates porn stars,
Correct.
has a couple $100 million in the bank, and went to a Super Bowl. Trey Lance, gift from the gods, his athletic ability, bang, barely played in college, right to the NFL, first-round draft pick. We're giving up half our draft stock to get him. And now you have this kind of geeky, nerdy owner who made a couple $1 billion, I assume, in the tech sector or something like that. No disrespect if I'm wrong about that, right?
Yeah.
But he didn't make it going door-to-door selling encyclopedias. I can promise you that.
Vacuums.
And is dumping on those guys like they don't exist. There's an aspect of that that's very relatable to the common man.
I also have a lot of respect for Brock Purdy because if you're third on the depth chart, like usually those guys are practice squad guys, and in your mind you're a journeyman, right? Because you're never going to see the field, especially with Jimmy G ahead of you and Trey Lance, the way he was positioned in that organization. So the fact that he said, "Hey, I'm going to wait my turn, and I'm going to be ready when when my number's called," is a credit to him because you talked about his humble beginnings, you talked about his work ethic, you talked about how he's a blue collar type guy. And you got to respect that because a lot of guys I've been around like third-string quarterbacks, those guys are the Willie Beamers of the world. They're popping
and by
snacks.
the way, let's not get the facts of the story twisted. It's nice to come out now after the fact and say, oh, Shanahan told me that he was the best quarterback on our roster. Even if that story's accurate, The only reason San Francisco activated him off their practice squad was because a couple other teams came calling, and you can't protect guys on your practice squad. They're essentially free agents.
This kid is 21-5 as a Niner starter. On top of that, I mentioned this before. Kenny Pickett was drafted ahead of this guy. Sam Howell was drafted. Bailey Zappi, was drafted ahead of this guy. Nobody heard of Brock Purdy.
Not a great quarterback class.
Well, two things is it's a great story, as you said, for Kyle Shanahan to go to the owner and say, listen, I know we've got Jimmy G. I know that we spent all this draft capital on Trey Lance, but Brock Purdy might be the best. Great story in hindsight. But those are also the same lips that said to that same ear, let's give up everything we possibly need to get Trey Lance.
Right.
You know, just months before
Which is interesting. And then what we'll find out is, was that Shanahan? Was that Lynch? Were they on the same page on that? And all those things, and those stories that come with it. But at the end of the day, there will be a movie made about the Brock Purdy story.
A Disney movie.
There's no doubt about it. Like, if we're making a movie about Sean Payton, right, who authored Bountygate, I can promise you there'll be a movie.
The actor that played McLovin is already angling for that role.
I like that.
Moving on to our final headline here, we have some coaching news. Dan Quinn has been announced as the Commanders' head coach, meaning there's an opening for the defensive coordinator position in Dallas. Who should Jerry Jones be on the phone with right now?
Like Washington just signed their death warrant for the next 3 years. No disrespect to Dan Quinn, but that's a bad franchise. And he's not going to make it.
None taken. That's tough.
Thank you. No disrespect. But here's the deal. If I'm the Dallas Cowboys and I've got this primo opening right now, defensive coordinator, maybe even / associate head coach, because that's what Dan Quinn was, there are two guys you go get, and neither one of them are named Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick's not going from the greatest head coach of all time to a defensive coordinator job under Mike McCarthy.
What would you like, Mr. McCarthy?
Which is why that question was so stupid.
But he's also the general manager and the president of football operations.
Guy's making $20 million a year. He's going to go to Dallas for $2 million? Come on. In any event, there are two guys that make immediate sense. And I think if you're a Dallas Cowboy fan, and I got one right over there, Troy. Troy, come over here 1 second. This is Mr.
Troy.
Just come over on camera.
I'm fixing his hair.
All you have to do is shake your head like this, like a gobbler's knob, or shake your head like this, which means no. This is Troy, St. John's kid, loves Rick Pitino and what the Red Men are doing. Okay, here you ready? And he's named Troy because his dad's a Cowboy fan. He was named after Troy Aikman. Is that correct? There you go. Good job. All right, so here we go. I'm going to give you the two names. We'll go one for one. The first guy the Dallas Cowboys should consider bringing in to be their defensive coordinator, are you ready? Is Wink Martindale.
That's a little bit.
I got a shrug.
Little shrug.
No talking. I got a shrug with a little bit of a ooh.
It's a 50-50.
All right, the second guy, and he's my favorite guy, I love him dearly, that I would bring in is Rex Ryan.
No!
We got to know.
No.
All right, thanks, buddy. Good job.
Brandon Staley?
Well done there. Well done. I think those are the two guys. To me, Dallas is different. We all know that. The attention you get is different. And, oh, by the way, they've got talent in the building on defense. Diggs comes back, of course, from the torn ACL. These are the big names that are out there. Ron Rivera would mean...
They're talking to Ron Rivera, which is ridiculous.
Which to me means you're making a trade. Like you traded Dan Quinn for Ron Rivera.
Yeah.
Neither team wins on that end because they both stink.
Can I throw a name out there and people may scoff at? What about Mike Vrabel?
I like
Mike
that.
Vrabel. See, here's the thing, though. I know some guys, the path is head coach, it doesn't go well, come back as a coordinator like Dan Quinn, and get another shot to be a head coach. But Mike Vrabel was a head coach for a pretty long time, like a decade in Tennessee. I know a lot of people love Mike Vrabel, but this comes down to kind of pride and ego. If I'm a 10-year head coach who went to an AFC championship game and had some level of success, am I now going to, just to stay in the league, be a defensive coordinator?
Yeah, because this position, the Joneses are hiring this position as a potential head coach as well. There's no, that is not a secret. Correct. So if you bring Mike Vrabel in, I can imagine that handshake.
And you also saying
that's fair.
I played against Mike Vrabel. I know the type of man he is. Like, guys play for guys like that because not only is pedigree and where he comes from, but he knows defense. And when he had the defense he had at Tennessee, look, they're about Tennessee solely this year. They were solely in games because of that defense.
Not a lot of big names either.
And it wasn't a lot of big names. I mean, obviously you had Jeffrey Simmons and some other guys, but overall, man, like, guys love Mike Vrabel. And that's a guy, when he walks in the room, it doesn't matter what he puts on the board.
Look,
it's solely what comes out of his mouth.
The Cowboys got Mike Vrabel, who I did not consider, truth be told, that's a great hire. I don't know if Mike Vrabel would do it, but it'd be a great hire for the Dallas Cowboys. I can tell you, I learned yesterday, inside source here on the Carton Show, the Dallas Cowboys have no interest in Matt Patricia. That's out there.
Well.
Yeah, that's out there. That's out there. I can confirm that.
There's the breaking news.
My Dallas Cowboys sources have told me they will not hire Matt Patricia. Now, I will say this, we like to pat ourselves on the back when we get stuff right, which happens a lot, which is why, my shoulder's sore. That being said, I got to give my guy Stink, Mark Schlereth, credit. When we brought up McDonald getting the head coaching job in Seattle, I thought that was more of a Dan Quinn story, that he didn't get the job. Well, listen to what Mark Schlereth said yesterday right here on the Carton Show. Play it, guys.
Plus, there is still the Washington job, right? And Dan Quinn has interviewed a couple of times for the Washington job. So that's still on the table.
There you go. Now, he didn't guarantee it or say it's happening, but I had poo-pooed that across the board, and Schlereth had that right.
Yeah, Schlereth was smart on that, but you also looked at this Washington who, listen, Washington's in a situation where defensively they were atrocious. Offensively, they don't have an identity, and Dan Quinn doesn't have a lot of power. So his whole purpose is right now, he's going to have to get a D coordinator and really figure out offensively what he has. He's going to have to put this whole group together or try to recruit this
Willie,
group.
if you're a franchise that's not playing well, worst franchise in the division, and you've got the number 2 pick in a quarterback-heavy draft, why would you go and get a defensive coach?
I don't know.
Why would you do that? You got the number 2 pick.
This is
You're
what
gonna
Washington
pick a new
fans,
quarterback. Why not have an offensive mind that can mind meld with that quarterback and create a franchise, a winning culture?
Yeah, it's troubling because I don't think this is a sexy hire. Like, if you're a Washington fan, you're like, he's coming to save us.
And you had Ben Johnson right there. And reportedly, Ben Johnson asked for too much money. Imagine you're a Commanders fan.
Yeah, it's also weird. That makes Ben Johnson look bad also. We don't know what he asked for, so there's really no context to what that number is. But you're right. I'll say this, it doesn't always work out. Like, we always talk about who wins the press conference, right? Yep. And I can tell you as a Jet fan, when the Jets hired Robert Saleh, Jet fans across the board were euphoric about it because we saw this well-built guy pacing up and down the Niners sideline, tons of energy, guys clearly playing hard for him. We were thrilled. I even made shirts up that said, my coach can kick your coach's ass. Because we were like, yeah, we got the guy. All gas, no brakes. 4 years later, it really worked out.
A lot of gas.
So just because you're not the sexy hire, and he's not, and if I'm a Commando fan, I'm like, come on, man. Dan Quinn?
Yeah.
Can't we do better? Where's Lane Kiffin when you need him? Offensive-minded guy, big success.
They would have been happy with Vrabel.
Right? Vrabel.
Yeah.
So just because he's not popular, and we ain't loving it, doesn't mean he won't do a good job, except in this case, he won't do a good job because they're a bad football team without a lot of talent outside of Terry McLaurin. In any event, we got much more coming your way. We have last night's precision passing competition, but they picked some interesting quarterbacks to be a part of it. We got Jim Harbaugh talking about his goals with the Chargers, and Patrick Mahomes Sr. talked about Tom Brady, Joe Montana, and his son. A little ranking coming up right after this. Anyhow, yesterday, this the way they do the Pro Bowl stuff now, they have them as the Pro Bowl games. It's a multi-day event in Orlando. So they did something last night called Precision Passing Competition. But they used Tua, Jalen Hurts, and Baker Mayfield as the quarterbacks.
Way off there. Jalen, get it down, Jalen.
Yeah, the only guy missing was Dak Prescott.
Maybe they're drunk, not you, Craig.
Damn.
They're throwing passes to Roomba.
I mean, it was like...
I mean, them dummies are flying now. I'm just saying.
Like, there's no defense. There's really no clock on any throw.
It looks dark in there.
Yeah, it looks dark. It's come on, and that's the basket though. We've seen a lot of quarterbacks try to attempt. We actually tried. There was
so you're saying you can light it up if you were in that competition?
To be fair, we went out to Jets camp, as you know, and I did that exact same thing in the nets and in the garbage cans, and was money good. To be fair, from like 20 yards. yards, 25 yards.
Yeah.
Some of those throws are farther than that, but I'm not making $200 million as a quarterback.
A television host.
Yeah. I'm a
saying,
35-year-old guy who just likes to throw a football.
It looks a little harder than you think. That's what I'm saying. It looks a little
like Jalen Hurts, you should be able to throw the pass to a Roomba.
The word is that they offered the opportunity to Dak Prescott to be in it, and he said,
I don't need that in my life.
I'll just take last place now and the check that gets
correct.
Rough. Anyhow, some more of that kind of hijinks coming up all weekend long. Jimmy Harbaugh, my main man, who's the new head coach of the LA Chargers, had his press conference yesterday, talking about the Chargers' goals. And for a franchise that has never won a Super Bowl, interesting that he's looking at multiple championships. Here's Jim Harbaugh. Play the sound, guys.
Los Angeles, Southern California, they respect talent, effort, and winning. And it needs to be multiple championships.
Yes. Now, listen, I've been a part of a fan base that has heard owners come in and talk about winning one's not enough. We're going to build a foundation to win several. And I appreciate Jim. He's a very self-confident dude, and he's won everywhere he's been. Got to a Super Bowl in San Francisco, obviously. Didn't win it. Won a national title at Michigan. If I'm a Charger fan, I love it. But if I'm not a fan of the Chargers, and I'm a big fan of Jim Harbaugh, like I am, and I've always wanted him to coach my team, multiple? Let's just win one. And here's the deal. Every fan of the Chargers would trade a single championship for 25 more years of incompetent football.
Yeah.
Because that's what we will sell our souls to get that one title. Look what the Rams did, right?
Yep.
Now, they've come back around pretty well because they're very well coached and had a great draft, not a good one. But, man, let's just win one before we worry about winning two.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is a great hire for the Chargers, but they're in a salary cap hell. That's the bottom line. And defensively, they haven't done anything to kind of bring anybody in that's going to tilt the field. Overall, man, this is an organization. The last time they were Super Bowl in 95? That's accurate. I mean,
and if I remember correctly, they lost by 90 to Steve Young and the San Francisco 49ers.
I mean, it's him. How well can he connect with Herbert? What does that look like going forward? And if you talk about Super Bowls, how about you just win the division, then playoffs?
Now, that kind of proclamation of we need to win multiple championships resonated, obviously, with Charger fans. But there's another part of his press conference that resonated with me. And it's the living plans for Jim and his wife. What are they going to do when they get to L.A. and find digs to live in? He had a pretty unique idea of where he wants to live. Watch this.
I want to drive my RV out and go to a trailer park, like down by the water or by Disneyland. There'll be two that I've researched that are close to the facility. And I want to Jim Rockford it for the next couple months until we move to the new facility.
Let me help you guys out. Jim Rockford was a 1970s TV show about a detective in California who solved crimes while living out of an RV. That is a dated, old reference.
I thought you were the only person dropping references like that.
All right. I understand it because I'm old. All right. But the man's making $16 million a year for the next 5 years, which I did the math, is $80 million. You do not have to live in an RV down by the river. Although I love the fact that you want to.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, the head coach of the Chargers making $16 million a year, living in a mobile trailer park? How great is that? Hey, Billy, going to work, driving your house to work.
Yeah.
How great would that be?
I mean, that's confidence. So he plans on winning a lot. But if he plans on losing, that thing's going to get broken into. That's the problem. So
it's not the Bronx.
No, but if you're a head coach, right? Let's think about it. If you're a head coach is losing and nothing's going right with the organization and the franchise, you're gonna tap on the window, like, hey, I got to talk to you.
But here's the difference. Like, if you live at 123 Main Street, I know where to find you. If you live in your car, I don't know where you parked today.
I'm going to egg you.
How the hell am I going to find you? I just think that's what makes him, he's like quirky, and I love that about him.
I'm very concerned about this entire press conference. First of all, number one, I always like to keep expectations low as possible, especially in professional life, right?
Sure.
So to go up to this podium and say we're going to win multiple championships, just go up and say we want to compete because you haven't competed for a couple years, and then if I'm the owner of the Chargers and I've handed all decision-making power over to this man, and the first decision that he made is to live in an RV in a trailer park by Disneyland, I'd be like, is that a breach of contract? I was like, can we get out of this?
You know the best thing he said in that is that he has researched.
He's researched the trailer parks by Disneyland. Like, bro, what are you doing?
And here's the other great part. They always say, if you find the right spouse, you're good for the rest of your life, no matter what life throws at you. His wife is the right woman for him. Because he's like, she's into it. She's down.
If I signed an $80 million contract and told my wife we're moving to Los Angeles, the first thing she would do is be like, I found a $100 million home for us.
Exactly right.
100%.
And yes, that's Jim Harbaugh. And one final thing, NFL-wise, not Super Bowl related, Patrick Mahomes Sr., who did play for the New York Mets, was a professional athlete, was asked to rank the top quarterbacks, in his opinion, of all time. The notion, of course, being you got to figure he's going to say his son's number one. But that's not how it works for the Mahomes family. Here's Patty Sr. Listen to this.
But as far the name of the game is winning, and those guys won at a great rate. And right now, Patrick, is doing what he needs to do. But those guys, to me, still have the nod.
Meaning Tom Brady and Joe Montana. Montana, of course, 4 for 4 in the Super Bowl. Had a little run with Kansas City, ironically. Got to a playoff game, obviously, and won a playoff game with Kansas City. And then, of course, there's Tom Brady, who is the GOAT. You can debate if you want another day, not on this show, of course. But that's the guy he's chasing. So don't you love it when a dad keeps it real? Because most dads are cheerleaders. Most moms are cheerleaders. But that's a dad who also played at the highest level of his chosen sport, who kept it real. My son's awesome. He's on his way. But he ain't Brady and he ain't Montana.
Yeah, and it's also, him telling his son that, the story's not over, right? It still needs to be written. So if you guys lose the Super Bowl to Brock Purdy and 49ers, people will remember that. And it's going to go down in the book. So I think it's more of his father being like, listen, son, you still got to finish the job. Get it done.
Here's the other thing. And again, I said this earlier in the show, when you leave that up there on the screen for a second, Brady's got more than Mahomes and Montana combined.
Yeah.
And that's why the mere fact that we can talk about Mahomes in the same conversation as Tom Brady says all you need to know about where we think Mahomes is going to wind up. But we should have an extra level of appreciation for what Tom Brady accomplished and what he did. And I know he was a part of the evil empire of the New England Patriots and Belichick. And if you weren't a Patriots fan, you despise those guys and all the things that came along with all their winning. So I get that aspect of it. But what Brady did is so ridiculous and so much more than anyone did as an individual athlete, I think, in the modern era. In any sport, you have to continue to tip your cap to what he did.
If the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, right here on this program, at this desk, we're going to be making the comparisons between Mahomes and Brady.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're Tom Brady at home, you're like, he's got 3.
Right.
I've got more than twice that.
That's
so
right.
let's slow the roll on that. Another thing about this, and you mentioned this, I think it's a good point, is that's not just a dad. It's a dad who's a former pro athlete.
Yeah, so he gets
and you understand. If you're just a dad, you're like, that's my boy. He's in the Super Bowl.
Right.
That's the best quarterback that ever lived. But when you have a pro athlete history you can speak to, it's a little bit more realistic about where we are.
Yeah, it's good that he took away the fan hat. He's like, listen, I'm keep it a buck with you. It's still working.
And the beauty of Pat Mahomes Sr., he enjoys a beverage or two at these games.
And a cigar.
And a cigar at these games. And of all the stuff going on, obviously, with Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, the one guy who kept it real is Pat Mahomes' dad, Pat Sr., who said before the AFC Championship game, when he was asked, where are you sitting? And he goes, hopefully not near them. And I just want to say this. It's funny to me what's happening right now with this whole Kelce Swift thing, which to me was really much more obnoxious 2 or 3 months ago as, it was every day and all we talked about.
It's still every day.
But not as much. Now all of a sudden it seems like the move is...
Backlash to the backlash.
Yeah, now it's I know a good position to be in.
Backlash to the backlash.
Yes, let me attack the people attacking them.
Yeah, that's
but
where
2
we are
months
now.
ago, everybody hated it.
I still hate it. The fact that every time we watch a Chiefs game, she's a part of their narrative.
Yeah, but she's not requesting it, though. And at the end of the day, do I care? Not really. I tell you what I do dislike, if I can be honest about it, and it's not nothing to do with Taylor Swift. Good for her, right? It's that every time I see her, I have to see Brittany Mahomes.
And remember, his dad said, hopefully not near them. That's his daughter-in-law.
That's right.
It's his daughter-in-law he's talking about.
Like, if you want it, we could go on forever. That's annoying to me, not Taylor Swift. But anyhow, that's out there. We got much more football coming your way. We do have a huge offensive coordinator hire that took place yesterday. And is Brock Purdy elite? See, now here's what's happening.
They're trolling you.
Here's what's happening. Since I criticized a previous question, now they're just coming at me.
Right.
Okay, all good. All good. All good. I appreciate it. Real quick, congratulations to the Las Vegas Raiders. Antonio Pierce has found himself a brand new offensive coordinator. I love this guy, Cliff Kingsbury, who of course got dumped out in Arizona and then bought a one-way ticket to Thailand because that's where the love of his life was, doing a photo shoot. So Kingsbury wins twice. Number one, he's back in the NFL. He did spend last year on USC staff as offensive coordinator for Caleb Williams, and now he's back in the NFL as an offensive coordinator. He's still making mad loot from Arizona, so it wasn't about the money. And why do I love Cliff Kingsbury? Because
there we go. Well, that helps.
That's his girlfriend. And raise your hands if you wouldn't buy a one-way ticket to Thailand if she was there.
I'll walk there.
I'd probably go
What are you talking about?
I'd probably go
You see, really swimming.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make it.
Come on, babe.
That's a great technique. Really.
I think Willie's like, go to the breaststroke.
Yeah. I want to see Willie do the swim again, Willie.
You got your head down, turn it over.
There we go, Willie.
I think her name is Veronica Beal or Biel.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't really matter.
Her name could be Bucket. I'll still go after.
Yeah. Let's just enjoy for a moment.
Yeah. Slow pause. Drink that up.
It is Friday, and I thought I worked for Fox.
Whoa.
Back up on the screen.
Oh, there you go.
No, maybe not.
And they don't. Congratulations, Raiders fans.
Humming.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that, but yeah, it's our gift to you guys. Can I get a couple cutouts, please?
Happy Friday, folks.
Time for first football, only because we have to. Only because we have to. But Carton After Dark is in the works.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, fellas, I have a new co-host.
I don't blame you, too. I just want to be in the audience.
Yeah. All right, Jacoby's got first in football.
Moving on to first and football. There is a Rice in the Super Bowl, Rashee Rice. However, it is Niners legend Jerry Rice who had some thoughts about the starting quarterback of the Niners, Brock Purdy. Here he is.
Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy, supposed to be that, I guess that game manager. That's what they keep saying. But I feel like he's that elite quarterback, and I think, we have a chance. He makes plays, man, and I think that's just like a Montana, like a Steve Young, and just a down-to-earth person that wants to win, and he's going to do everything he can to get that victory.
Okay, when you compared him to Joe Montana, I thought that was insane. But now Jerry Rice is comparing Brock Purdy to Joe Montana. Has the Brock Purdy praise gone too far?
No, and it just confirms what I've been saying since October.
What do you expect him to say,
He's
Craig?
an elite quarterback. That's Jerry Rice, who, by the way, you look fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Jerry's got to be 60 years old, and he looks like he's 25.
Yeah, you know that black don't crack.
He's great. He's 61 years old there. And I'm not going to repeat what Willie said because I'm not allowed. No, but that being said, he just said what I've been saying all year. And yes, to a point, what do you want him to say? Obviously, he's become kind of like a cheerleader and mascot for San Francisco. Right. He's had a lot of home games out there, wearing the chains and like kind of anti-Jerry Rice. He's played into it. But when Jerry Rice comes out and kind of puts his stamp of approval and uses the word elite, and compares him to the two greatest quarterbacks, obviously in Niner history, in Steve Young and Joe Montana, that does speak volumes, and it does carry some weight.
Yeah, and it goes back to that famous clip where Steve Young is on the sideline. He's like, "Get that monkey off my back." Well, Brock Purdy has to do the same thing.
Sure.
As much as
he's not at the same level Young was when
100%.
he had to win.
But right now, for Shanahan and Brock Purdy, they got to get the monkey off the back.
Shanahan for sure does.
Yeah, but Purdy in particular, because right now we've been forced. It's been forced down America's throat that this guy is a machine. He's the elite. He makes the best decisions in the most crucial situations. So if that's the case, go win the damn thing.
Yep.
Go do it. So there's no more arrows thrown your way.
I'm going to quickly hijack the show to share Jerry Rice anecdote from my guy Kevin Clark at the Ringer, now at ESPN. Jerry Rice golfs. And he brings a suit with him while he's golfing because at the same place that he golfs at, they often have weddings. So after he's done golfing, he showers, puts a suit on, and crashes the weddings.
Is that right?
It's a fact.
He's a wedding crasher?
He's a wedding crasher.
What's next? Funerals? I know he got divorced, but are you that hard up to get dates?
Different vibe.
Yeah, yes. Cliff Kingsbury's girlfriend's probably got friends. Right. Like you are Jerry effing Rice, aren't you?
He brings the suit knowing there's going to be a wedding.
You know what's amazing?
Changes it and goes.
There's a great juxtaposition of that story, which I never heard before. That's a great story to share. Michael Jordan golfs with $100K in cash in his golf bag at all times.
Just in case.
A little different.
Yeah.
A little different.
Gambling man.
A little different. It's like, yo, MJ, why is your bag so heavy? Don't look where the balls are.
Yeah.
And I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah.
100K cash, or else he doesn't golf. It's always in his bag.
Wow.
Yep.
Moving on to our second and football. 49ers edge rusher Nick Bosa had an interesting back and forth with reporters when they asked some questions about his opponent for the Super Bowl. Here he is.
On film, Taylor's, I think, leads the NFL with a ton of penalties. Anything stand out when you watch him?
They hold a lot.
Okay, Willie, you're a resident offensive lineman specialist. How would you feel if an opposing player said this about you before a big game?
Well, in the game, my first pass block would be a cut block.
Oh!
Yeah, if you're going to complain about holding, then I'm going to go after your knees.
Yeah, but what if he's factually correct, Willie Colon, Mr. I led the league in holding penalties when I played?
I didn't lead the league. I was up there.
Yeah,
I didn't lead.
You led the league.
I didn't lead. Troy, don't do that to me.
Troy, research.
You led the league. But look, the point is, this is also gamesmanship. This is also, I want the officials to know all week long that I'm going to be chirping because, to be fair, they do get called throughout the year. Second most penalties against the offensive line. And that one guy, it's Taylor, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Taylor.
He's had more penalties called against him than any offensive lineman in the league at 16. So what Nick Bosa is saying is two things. One, it's factually correct and accurate. That offensive line gets called for a lot of penalties. You can see it right there, only the Bears with more. And Taylor specifically leads the league with 16. He's also trying to get inside the officials' heads. For those of you that don't follow it, coaches, both sides, who go up to the lead official and the other guys, all pregame, and be in their ear about, look for this, look for that, look for this, look for that. Because if you can just steal one holding call and it negates a big play, good for you. And that's the gamesmanship of putting stuff like that out there.
And you talk about that big play. Nick Bosa also remembers the last time he played the Chiefs, right? It was 3rd and 15. Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. It was supposed to be a holding call in that play, in the Super Bowl, excuse me. It was Eric Fisher that was supposedly holding him. I mean, if you go back to that play, we don't have it right now, but Bosa's got his big hand up there. He's only an inch away from patting the ball down, and the Chiefs get off the field, and the Niners are back on to hopefully win that Super Bowl. But it didn't happen. And the hold right now for Nick Bosa is that one play, like, man, if I could have got there, I would be holding.
I'm an inch away.
I'm an inch away.
Different outcome.
So right now, he's in his mind, I'm not leaving off this field without a Super Bowl. I won't let this happen again.
I would say to Nick Bosa, I'm sure it'll come up at some point, whether there's a report that's got the stones to do it or not. I might say to Nick Bosa, have you talked Chase Young into showing up for a game? Because part of the reason that the San Francisco defense kind of got abused. You guys all right over there?
We lost somebody.
All right, it's all good.
We lost Troy.
Part of the reason that they looked poor against both Green Bay and against Detroit on the defensive side of the ball, you always use the term, dude didn't show up on tape.
Yeah.
Chase Young has not delivered the goods that he was supposed to bring.
The best half that the 49ers played defensively was the second half against the Lions.
Yes,
and
sir.
they finally started blitzing because that front four couldn't get there, including Chase
And remember,
Young.
that's supposed to be the special sauce of the Niner defense.
But it's not working.
That they don't have to blitz and they still wreak havoc in your backfield. Well, guess what? If Chase Young no-shows, it's a lot easier to stop Nick Bosa with a double team, a chip, a fullback, a tight end, whatever it might be, because you don't have to worry about Chase Young because he's not on tape.
But listen, on top of that, it's not just Young. They have Randy Gregory. Like, they have Hargrave. They got dogs. You know what I mean? So if you talk about Nick Bosa, especially against the Lions, like, he had 2 sacks and 5 quarterback hits. Like, he had an impact. On the other side, you watch Chase Young, he was getting thrown out the club. Like, he was getting manhanded.
Yes.
So if you, to your point, Craig, and I love it, because if you're Nick Bosa, before Chase Young got there, the big concern was that Nick doesn't have any help, right? If Chase Young has now arrived, you have a side conversation, bro. Like, one-on-ones, you got to win, because I will be getting double teamed. I will be getting chip help. So you got to be a factor.
And I'm going to go back to where you started with this. This is calculated. Remember Nick Bosa after the Eagles game says, we just gave the blueprint, and they were about to play the Cowboys, and they were in time in contention for the number 1 seed. He does this strategically, and he is doing this strategically. Oh, they hold a lot, and he knows the refs are going to see that clip, and then he's going to get at least one call from it.
And by the way, his level of performance hasn't dropped off. He's still a stud.
He's getting doubled.
He just gets doubled a lot, and that's why you need to Chase Young to get the job done, because you can't account for all of them if they're on their game. And Chase Young there was a story out there, again, I don't know how accurate or not. I gave it to you on Monday, where there's talk or whispers that they're so down on Chase Young after the last couple weeks that they were considering him not playing in the Super Bowl.
One thing that's so great about the Super Bowl is all he has to do is make one play.
That's it.
All he has to do is make one play, and the trade is worth it, the money's worth it, he's celebrated during the parade.
Yep, that's exactly
Moving on to our final football topic here, third in football. This is, again, the Packers general manager, Brian Kuntz, had this to say about that man, Jordan Love, and a potential long-term contract this offseason.
Kuntz? We'll go down that road. I think certainly I think that'll be important for our football team to have some stability there. Jordan and his representation, I think they're really good people, so we'll start working towards that sometime this next couple months.
So this was Jordan Love's first season as a starter. Yeah. There was some ups and some downs, finished on some very high ups. Did he play well enough to get a long-term contract?
Didn't Kuntz look a lot different than he did last time a year ago? Like right now he's like, things are pretty good. We'll get around to it. We love, and here's the thing, love his representation, good people.
Yeah, the hair too.
We'll have a conversation at some point. That kind of thing. Like a year ago, it was like, we can't reach him. He's somewhere hiding underground. He doesn't have cell service in his house in Malibu, and we haven't spoken to him in 3 months. We have no idea what he's going to do. Right? Now it's like, we love their rep.
Great representation. We'll have a dinner.
No doubt we'll get a deal done. Things are good. I feel good. I look good. It is a major difference from where this team has been the last 2 or 3 years, awaiting with bated breath. Is Aaron Rodgers going to retire? Is he going to come out of the darkness retreat and make crazy demands?
But it's not just Kuntz that feel it. The fan base feels that way.
I think to a point,
Green Bay fans, year after year,
well,
they're like...
to be fair, that's changed. Like, I can guarantee you, when they traded him to the New York Jets and didn't get this, bevy of picks, in return, the initial reaction was, get rid of Murphy, get rid of Kuntz, and what are we doing? Now that Jordan Love emerged from week 10 on as a top-level quarterback and they won a playoff game, I think people reverted back to, I love the Kuntz, I love Murphy, I love Love. Screw you, Aaron Rodgers. And what's crazy about that is for 2 guys back-to-back in Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers to give them 30 years of grade A Hall of Fame quarterback play, it ended poorly with Favre and the Packer fans. And it ended poorly with Rodgers and the Packer fans. It's a weird kind of thing there with the quarterbacks and how great careers come to an end. Now, they get honored. Their jerseys are retired. They're remembered for all the great moments. But also consider this. For all the greatness there, Favre's only got 1. Aaron's only got 1. 1 and 1.
They got some MVPs, though.
Listen, we got much more show coming your way. As the great Chuck Woolery once said, we'll be back in 2 and 2 with a little something we call For Real or Fugazi. And who's the most likely candidate to be the new DC in Dallas? Right after this. Time now for an NFL version of For Real or Fugazi. Willie Clone, you go first. Jacobs, you back him up. The Dallas Cowboys should hire Wink Martindale as their new defensive coordinator. For real or Fugazi?
I'm going to say for real. We talked about how he left the building in New Jersey. It was in a hostile territory.
Yes.
It was bad conditions. So if you ever want to stick it back to your employer, join the enemy, right? That's the bottom line. But overall, if you're not able to get Wink Martindale, I'm going to throw it out there. Go try to fish Mike Vrabel out and see if he's willing to take the job.
Yeah, those are some guys that are available. Rivera is, to me, that's just a non-starter.
Don't.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Mike Zimmer to me is a non-starter. I like Wink Martindale. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of Rex Ryan's. I think it's a great acquisition. Bring him back into the league. And don't sleep on Brandon Staley. Only because, he was part of the Rams' success of building a defense there. And yes, he had Aaron Donald and in his prime, Ramsey and all that. But he's so highly regarded as a defensive mind. He was just a lousy head coach in L.A. To me, if you go Wink 1 and Rex 1A or vice versa, I think the fan base outside of our own guy Troy would wrap their arms around that because those guys represent high-level defensive football. And remember, as bad as Dak was in that game, and their offense was kind of non-existent until very late in garbage time when they made the score a lot closer than it really was, it was the Cowboys' defense that didn't get the job done against Green Bay. Rex Ryan, Wink Martindale, and if I'm a Cowboy fan, let's ride. I'm good.
I think if you're Jerry Jones and you're going to be giving this person $2, $3, $4 million a year, you have to be looking at them as a potential head coach replacement for Michael.
Yeah, that's a fair point,
Which is
too.
why I think Staley would be great as a defensive coordinator. But I don't see him making that leap and being the head coach of the Cowboys.
Now,
the only Vrabel is so nice.
And Vrabel, you want to throw Vrabel on the two, which is your idea for sure. I'm good with Vrabel. Obviously, I think the Cowboy fan would love Vrabel too because of his success and his resume. But one thing on Rex, my guy, you know full well, the first time that the Rex Ryan defense only gives up like 2 field goals and Dak Prescott throws 3 picks, there's going to be an anonymous source saying, I can't do everything.
Oh, not just that. Players in the locker room have gravitated towards Rex Ryan. All of that.
That's right. Which is, for us, that's the theater I'm looking for.
Meat.
Oh,
Red meat.
And also, if Rex does go and have some success, I mean, the pressure between him talking and Michael Parsons talking.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of talk.
Now, remember, the way it works, just real quick, this is in the weeds, coordinators are only asked to speak once a week.
Yes.
And sometimes they even rotate which coordinator. But you're going to keep a muzzle on Rex?
Never.
No, sir. No. Yeah, I love that. It'd be great. Get him back. Great. All right, number 2. Patrick Mahomes, I want to be very clear how I word this, is the most talented quarterback of all time. For real or Fugazi?
Push back. Talented meaning?
I didn't write that. I just read it.
I'm going to go Fugazi.
Fugazi.
Yeah, I'm giving it to Brady.
Yeah,
I would. Brady.
Oh, no way. I'm going Mike Vick. I mean, I think athletically talented. That's what I'm thinking.
That's why I asked.
Like
what
God-given natural athleticism.
Talented means what do you...
I mean, I'm going with Mike Vick because I read this as athletically talented, physically gifted. To me, that is Mike Vick.
And how do you read it?
Next one.
Okay, moving on.
Okay.
And the wording, that's tough because how do you ever pick anyone other than Brady? But obviously, I've never seen guys do anything that Michael Vick did athletically. No. Mahomes, of course, has a combination really of the two. But let's just put that one aside, and I'll take the loss on that one. All right, next one. Andy Reid. Andy Reid will retire if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl next Sunday. He's got the diabetic cankles, which is just very painful for a lot of people.
That's a lot.
If you don't believe me, just real quick show and tell.
Yeah.
Just a little show and tell here for you. I'll bring it over, guys.
It's a little
show and tell. Those are not the angles of a healthy man.
No,
it's tough.
We know that.
Not a lot of walking.
You see the edema. You see
your
the
ankles and your thighs should be the same size.
Yeah, that's right. It shouldn't be discolored.
Especially this area up here.
There you go. Anyway,
look great, Andy.
Andy Reid retires if they win the Super Bowl. For real or Fugazi?
I'm going to say for real.
Whoa!
Yeah, I can see him hanging it up, man. You're talking about this is his 4th Super Bowl, his opportunity at the end of the day to kind of go out on top with Patrick Mahomes, who's 28 years old. I think it'll be a good time to walk away and be a family man.
No chance. Absolutely no chance. Where do these reports come from? Has anyone sourced this?
No.
Is there a single person that said, oh, such and such said? No, it just kind of just bubbled up out of nowhere. It's all fake, and there's no doubt in my mind, win or lose the Super Bowl, Andy Reid is back on that sideline.
I think Bill Belichick's hoping that he retires because that'd be the perfect spot to come back into
Get someone
the league.
10 years older from the guy who just
Exactly
retired.
right. That's right. It's an old man's game. As long as that old man's name is Bill Belichick. All right, next. Brock Purdy is the best player on the 49ers. For real or Fugazi?
You're going to break your heart up. I'm saying Fugazi.
It's so Fugazi.
This, to me, is Deebo Samuels. The bottom line, when he's in the lineup and the way he played, especially in the second half of the last game, he was money good. So it's Deebo.
To me, the only other choice, Sergeant Jacobs, if you're not going to say Purdy, which is comical that you wouldn't say Purdy, is Trent Williams.
Trent Williams or Christian McCaffrey.
But I remember this. I remember a team that had all those players on it: Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. And when Brock Purdy got hurt, they forgot how to play football. Brock Purdy's the best player on the San Francisco 49ers.
I think we have a graphic of Deebo not in the lineup.
We don't need graphics.
I got Fred Warner in there, too.
So you're going Fugazi?
Way Fugazi.
Okay, I'm alone on an island. I'm like Edison, I'm like Voltaire, I'm like one of the great thinkers. Alone on an island,
great
and frankly, underappreciated until many, many years later.
Oh,
yeah.
So you said we're going to go back,
like Socrates, like Picasso, like all the great thinkers. Magellan,
Picasso, great thinker.
Columbus, all the greats.
Tupac.
Tupac.
Tupac. All right.
Biz Marquis.
I'm not sure why we're doing this one, but the Chicago Bears, no interest, should trade Justin Fields. For real or Fugazi?
I'm going to say Fugazi. I think he did a great job the second half of the season. It seems like he's coming to his own. And to be honest, I'm just not a believer in Caleb Williams right now.
Yeah, well, now there's going to be the haters coming out about Caleb. We saw, one of the scouts already came out and said he's a train wreck waiting to happen in the NFL. Next one, Robert Saleh has the hottest seat in the NFL starting right now.
Right now.
And going into next season. For real or Fugazi?
Oh, this is 100% for real. I don't know. And listen, I dare to say if they come out bad with Aaron Rodgers in the lineup, they may be a coaching switch in the middle of the season.
There are people talking about there being a coaching switch in February.
Right.
As opposed to even getting to September. I can tell you that Robert's on vacation right now, and apparently not a care in the world. Like, he's good. Even though Rome is burning all around him, he seems to be in a very good place.
If you've got 7 kids, you never don't have a care in the world, whether you're on vacation or not. That does not sound like a vacation. That does not sound like
I don't think he's with his kids.
Okay, then he's good.
I think he's good. I think he's unwinding and enjoying himself with his wife. And no kids is what I think is happening. Good. But that's for real. If he does make it to September.
I was trying to come up with someone else, and there's just no number 2. He's the hottest 100%.
Seat. Like, if they lose their first game of the season, I could see them saying it's a wrap right then and there.
Nick Sirianni?
No, they're saying McCarthy back there.
Sirianni's on the hot seat, but not at the same level Saleh.
I would say McCarthy, Sirianni, Saleh, not in that order.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Final one before we take a quick break. Jordan Love's extension with the Green Bay Packers will be more lucrative than Jared Goff's with the Lions. For real or Fugazi?
Yeah, I'm going to say for real. He's younger, right? Younger, has a lot more going, better cast around him. Look at the numbers. I mean, it's pretty solid right there, but I think the future goes through Jordan Love.
Don't forget, Goff's older, and he's already at a higher number.
You know what he is. You get paid for potential, so I would say that this is for real. However, there's a bigger picture thing going on here where it feels like you're either on your rookie contract or you get 5 years, $250 million. Like, these two quarterbacks deserve some sort of middle ground.
Yeah.
These should not be the Herberts and the Mahomes and the Lamars. Like, this should be a medium, not a small deal, not a big deal, somewhere in the middle.
It should be like a 5 years, $20 million per, 18 million
for 4,
per.
100 for 5, something like that.
Something like that. And here's what I think. Jordan Love will avoid this because for sure he'll get the multi-year deal. It'll be interesting to see if Detroit treats Jared Goff the way Washington and Minnesota have treated Kirk Cousins.
Interesting.
Where it's like 1-year deals,
Love ya.
but for buku bucks, like 35 or 40 million, but we're not giving you 5 or 6 years. We'll kind of go one at a time with you, and we're going to risk losing you if we don't franchise and you become a free agent. You know, it's like the Alex Smith kind of situation.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see what Detroit does.
No, I think that's 100% correct because Ben Johnson's coming back, right? And you know if they have another successful year, there's a chance he may walk out the door and potentially go somewhere else. So who knows?
That's a good point. Johnson is back, so they're the same old, which is a good thing for Detroit's offense. But at some point, Johnson is going to be a head coach in the NFL for sure. All right, coming up, one more segment to go before we get you on into the weekend. What's at stake right now for Brock Purdy and for Kyle Shanahan? And is it the same thing?
Friday!
Hey!
Good morning! Happy Friday! Welcome back to the Carton Show! We have your early morning headlines, and we start with this. Kyle Shanahan is facing off for the second time against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, and he celebrated the success they have had.
It's not a coincidence why they have. I mean, I think the quarterback is as hard to beat as anyone who's ever played the game. The things he can do from a talent standpoint, and then you pair that up with his scheme with Andy, how Andy runs a team, with Mahomes' experience now. I mean, that's why no matter what type of game it is, whether it's low scoring, high scoring, whether they're struggling or not, I mean, they always have a chance.
So we've got Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes on this side, established, proven Super Bowl champions. But we also have Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan, younger, more potential. Which quarterback-coach combo has the edge?
Well, if there is an edge, it goes to Mahomes and Reid because they've shown the ability to win multiple ways. You know, if you go back to 4 years when these two teams met in the Super Bowl, what was interesting about that Kansas City run is that they were down double-digit points in every playoff game that postseason, including the Super Bowl when they were down 10, going into the fourth quarter, and then went on a 21-0 run, and San Francisco didn't score another point. This year in the playoffs, they've been ahead in every single game and never had to have a drive in the fourth quarter to retake the lead or tie the game. So they've shown you over the course of the last 4 or 5, 6 years that whatever they're presented with, they've got an answer for it, and the moment's never too big for them. Obviously with Shanahan, both the experience in Atlanta, up 28-3, the experience 4 years ago where they 10-point lead in the fourth quarter against Kansas City, he hasn't shown that. This is also uncharted water and territory for Brock Purdy. We don't know what we're going to get out of Brock Purdy for 4 quarters. We know that as bad as he might play, he can overcome it. And that's a valuable lesson to learn. So if they do go down early, first drive of the game, Kansas City scores a touchdown, there is no panic in San Francisco. And that's a great lesson to learn, having come back and beaten Green Bay, obviously, and Detroit. But from an edge, like Mahomes and Reid against the world. Like there's not another head coach quarterback combination in football that these two guys don't have the edge over. Sean McDermott, Josh Allen. They only lost by 3. Who had the edge? These guys, right? Mike McDaniel and Tua. I know weather was a big factor, injuries, all that stuff. Who had the advantage? These guys. And as bad as they looked a lot of weeks offensively in the regular season, even in the second half, last week against the Baltimore Ravens, they got shut out in the second half. But in that case, it was Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo, who obviously figured out a defense that was going to stop the Baltimore Ravens. I think it's Reid and Mahomes, and everybody else is in second place.
Yeah, I think the edge is really about who you trust with the ball in the hand in crucial situations, right? It is obviously Patty and Andy Reid. Andy Reid trusting Patty Mahomes. But overall, Brock Purdy, what we saw out of him the last game was him just being more instinctive, right? Him realizing, running the ball, making the plays with his feet. I think Patrick Mahomes has the edge because I think he's been there, done that, and I think he trusts his weapons now more than ever. I think he trusts his MBS and Kelsey, and now Pacheco, the offense going through Pacheco. So
remember this,
I think he's just complete.
There's nothing at stake for the Kansas City Chiefs legacy-wise, narrative-wise. They are a dynasty. Win or lose, they are a dynasty. They are the dominant team. They're the team everyone's got to beat. But on the Shanahan-Purdy side, there's a lot riding on it.
Oh, yeah.
Can Shanahan get over that hump and prove that he's a big game head coach and can win a Super Bowl? Is Brock Purdy going to be in the same conversation as Joe Burrow and the other great quarterbacks in the AFC? Does he overtake those guys if he beats Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl? Remember, Joe Burrow beat him at Arrowhead in an AFC championship game. He didn't beat him in the Super Bowl. Obviously, AFC can't. But if you can beat this guy in the Super Bowl, you're going to see a lot of commercials with Brock Purdy's face on it.
Oh, yeah.
A lot.
And
he doesn't seem like that kind of kid.
You won't feel bad about him making under $1 million next season. If he
And I can tell you, you're going to see Brock Purdy with a piece of hay in his mouth on a John Deere tractor going, what do I do in the offseason? I like to farm.
Yeah, but him going to Disney World, I can see him in like the Corvette wearing the Mickey ears.
Yes.
He is a Mickey ears guy. He owns a pair. He owns a pair right now.
So then the story about Purdy is we're getting to learn more about him and his family. I saw a great interview with his mom, which took place right after the NFC Championship game. You know, there's nothing fake about this kid. This is a very humble kid, God-fearing, very religious family, wears it on his sleeve. And he was even asked about that, and his mom was. And he goes, look, people know who I am. I don't put my beliefs on anybody. Now, if you ask me, I'm happy to share my belief, in Christ and very religious family, going to church and all that. But I'm never going to put it on you. He's a very quiet, humble kid. Like, if you guys saw that the conversation that was filmed with him and Nick Bosa, when Bosa goes, oh, yeah, how do you feel about it? And he goes, I actually thought I could be better. Like that whole nonsense, right, in the locker room, which was really organic. Like, this is not a talker. This kid's not out there talking about what he does and how great he is. And there is something really refreshing in today's world, and how you could be down 30 points and you get a first down and you go first down, or you're down 30, you make one tackle for a loss and you're celebrating yourself. Brock Purdy doesn't do that.
Yeah, but I'm glad you brought the Bosa interview, that whatever that clip was, because what was interesting about it, like Bosa was asking him, like, come on. Like, this is your chance to say, this is it, to kind of come out. Because I think there's a part of it, you can't believe that he's this perfect, this wholesome, this good, when everybody else will be rattled in a lot of situations he's been in. So I think he's really, it's hard to say, I think he's really winning over the locker room. I think they're like, well, this kid could be legit. It's not a facade, so to speak.
And the next headline tails right on that. It is a story from the Niners owner, Jed York, who's surprisingly young, so I want to warn you before you see this clip. And he's talking about Kyle Shanahan during Purdy's rookie training camp year, what Shanahan's impression of a young Brock Purdy was and where he thought he might end up in the depth chart.
I think our third-string quarterback's our best quarterback. I'm like, okay. I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, obviously, like, we've invested in Trey. Like, Trey's doing a good job. Like, we're going to do everything that we can. We're not going to change that. And we're not going to change the depth chart. But, like, I think Brock will end up being our quarterback at some point.
So we talked about the difference between Andy Reid and Mahomes and Brock and Shanahan and what's at stake. But what's at stake more? Who's got more at stake, Shanahan or Brock Purdy heading into this game?
Well, it's a tough question. I think because Shanahan has gotten to the mountain but not over the mountain or the mountaintop, I think there's more riding on it for him career-wise and legacy-wise, all those things we talk about. Where do you stack up? We all agree that he's a genius as a coach, an offensive-minded genius, and has created a system that's very hard to defend against. And, yeah, he's got the pieces to do it, but he's still got to run a competent offense, right? He's been able to win, although not a Super Bowl, with a mediocre and average quarterback, we want to say, in Jimmy Garoppolo. He was very quick to turn his back on the future of the organization, Trey Lance, and then went to war with the kid that we knew very little to nothing about, out of Iowa State, via Arizona, obviously, as you know, the Brock Purdy story. So now he's had, two quarterbacks that he's going to go to a Super Bowl with. Not a lot of coaches can say that. But if they don't win, you can start asking your questions more about Shanahan than Purdy. Is Shanahan just one of those guys that's good enough to get there, but not good enough to win? And we'd say it about players, so why wouldn't you say it about coaches?
Here's a question for you, Willie. Given Shanahan's Super Bowl history, it doesn't matter how much the 49ers are up, Shanahan's never going to be comfortable because of the 28-3 with the Falcons and the 10-point lead in the previous matchup with these two teams.
Right.
Do you think that that history helps him in this game or hurts him in this game?
You have to think it helps him, right?
I disagree. I disagree.
Why?
Because if they have a lead in the second half and Kansas City scores and makes it a close game or takes the lead, that's when all those demons come back.
Yeah, but that's
when you're like,
Or is it now I'm going to learn from that pass? I'm going to run the ball.
That's
like,
where I'm going.
No joke. I don't think there's going to be a blowout either way in this game. But San Francisco needs to be up big in the fourth quarter where you can start processing the math going. There's no possible way Kansas City can come back. They're down 30 with 3 minutes to go. It's a wrap. Because anything short of that, and all of a sudden, those big balls get really tight and small, right? You get that tight booty syndrome, and you start going, please don't mess it up, please don't mess it up, please don't mess it up. I think that is worst case scenario for Kyle Shanahan, having a lead in the fourth quarter, losing it, and then being asked to go on a drive to win the game.
No, I think one of the reasons I believe that he's going to learn from his previous mistakes is because, one, of Brock Purdy. I think he honestly believes that Brock can get him out of those situations.
I do, too.
Now you're talking about what Kittle and obviously Debo and the cast of others. Now he has the weapons to say, hey, man, if we need to go to the ground game, we have CMC to get inside the holes. If we need big plays down the field, we got Debo Sr. If we need a big block on the edge, we got a George Kittle. So there's too much out on this team that he doesn't have answers for. And I think, listen, it's easy to kind of pivot back and say, well, every time he's been in crucial situations or big games, he's failed. But sometimes you learn from those moments. You know about yourself in those moments. You know about what you're thinking about in those moments. So I think he's a better coach. I think he'll be prepared if it comes down to that. But he definitely has a cast of guys to get him.
I also
out
think
of those
it helps that they came back in the NFC Championship game. I think
even the week before that.
It's like we've been in bad situations, backs against the wall.
Correct.
And we came together as a team and we overcame it. I think that's going to help.
Here's also the difference. Dan Campbell did them a favor. Now, they had to make a play defensively twice, which they get credit for that, making the defensive play. Andy Reid's not going to do him the favor. Andy Reid, although he has been guilty of, not using the run enough, he's now over that because he trusts Isaiah Pacheco. He's going to get 15 plus, maybe 20 carries in the game. But Dan Campbell kind of bailed Shanahan out, and the momentum changed significantly because of that fourth down stop both times, in San Francisco's favor. The only good thing, the thing you can rely on is we were down 17 and we came back and won. If Kansas City scores early and we're in a hole, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
It's gonna be okay. But look, I'm a guy who loves the agita of sports. Blowouts are boring to me. I hate them. They're not even fun to watch, even if it's my team.
Yeah.
I like the edge of your seat. Every play matters.
Yeah.
They've got huge amounts riding on a 3rd and 8, that kind of stuff. And I think this game goes one of two ways. It's either a close game, flip the coin, either team can win it, or San Francisco wins by double digits.
Yeah, because hostile times exposes your character, right? So with all the X's, O's, and all the gimmicks and all the talking, who you are as a man is exposed when the fire is against your face.
Yes,
man.
it doesn't build character, it reveals it.
Exactly.
Absolutely right. And I think San Francisco has shown character in how they came back and won both those playoff games against Green Bay and against Detroit. And I'm pumped up because we got 3 minutes to go. But we made it through the week where nothing's happening. And next week it's going to be awesome because it's Super Bowl week.
We have the Super Bowl coming up between the Niners and the Chiefs, but this is sports media. So the final headline's about the Cowboys.
Yes.
Why is it about the Cowboys? Because Cowboys defensive coordinator Dan Quinn has been hired as the Commanders' head coach, meaning there's now a vacancy in Dallas. Who do you think Jerry Jones is considering to fill that vacancy?
First, let me just a quick comment on the hiring of Dan Quinn. I have nothing against Dan Quinn. Seems like a really nice man.
Great guy.
But that is the least inspiring hiring I've ever seen in my lifetime. When you're a franchise with a brand new owner and you decide to tell your fan base we're bringing in a guy that failed miserably in his one Super Bowl.
All thought they were getting Ben Johnson just days ago.
Like to me, that is a terrible way to start new ownership of a franchise by hiring Dan Quinn. And I say that, no disrespect to Dan Quinn.
Sounds a little
who I'm sure is a nice enough guy. But that's how you tell the fan base.
They have the number 2 pick. They're going to pick a quarterback.
Things are going to be better because we got Dan Quinn. He's Ron Rivera.
Yeah.
He's the same guy. And like you said, you're drafting a quarterback. Dan Quinn's a defensive coach, not an offensive coach. So that's my thought on that. That being said, I love the fact that the Dallas Cowboys have this opening. I love it. because they're going to hire a guy that's going to goose Mike McCarthy, a guy that's sitting right there in the wings. Yeah, call a bad game in September.
Right.
You'll lose a couple games in September.
Give me that.
Because I got the resume to take your job.
Yeah.
3 guys. I was at 2. You guys convinced me there's a 3rd.
Okay.
I'm not taking ownership of it. You guys get credit for it.
Give it to us, Craig.
Guy number 1, easy peasy, Wink Martindale.
That's your guy.
Former Raven, former New York Giant, obviously, and give him an opportunity to stay in the NFC East. That's a problem for Philadelphia, who could have had him, and a problem, of course, for the New York Giants. Washington's a minor league team. They don't count. Number 2, my favorite guy. I'd love to see him back in the NFL. Rex Ryan.
Oh.
Rex.
Rex Ryan, and Rex Ryan will gladly goose Mike McCarthy
Easily.
every chance he gets, and before long, he'll be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. He's good for the league, and if I'm a Cowboy fan, I know I got a badass defense now, and a defense with attitude, and I'm all about that. So I'd love Rex Ryan to come in and be the defensive coordinator. You guys convinced me of a 3rd name, and I can't argue it. It would be a great hire. And that's Mike Vrabel.
Hell yeah. I love
Outside of that, whether the names you put up there, Brandon Staley, Ron Rivera.
Mike Zimmer, please.
You got 3 guys to choose from. They're all available. Go get one of them. And if I'm a Cowboy fan, I'm ready to rock.
I want Vrabel. If I'm a Cowboy fan, I want Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, you want Vrabel.
And if I'm Mike McCarthy, I do not want Mike Vrabel to be my defensive coordinator.
That's it.
Not at all.
Good news, those you just tuning in. Earlier this morning at Gobbler's Knob, Puxatawny Phil convinced us he did not see his own shadow.
Oh, good.
So we only have a couple more weeks of a winter. And spring's coming early. And for those next 6 weeks, the other reality for those of you out there right now are that the New York Knicks are the best team in the NBA. Don't get that twisted.
Go Knicks.
Go New York. Go New York. Go. Go New York. Go New York. Go.
Yeah.
All right. Next week on the show, all Super Bowl chatter. Tons of great guests. Tons of great commentary. Greg Jennings is here and a host of others. Enjoy your weekend.